All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 12th, 2026 regular meeting of the Township of Montclair Planning Board. In accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting a copy of the notice on the first floor of the municipal building and by sending a copy to the newspaper designated by the township for notices. This meeting is being broadcast live on Channel 34 and is streaming live and will be available on demand on YouTube. This meeting is a quasi-judicial proceeding, meaning that the board has powers and procedures resembling a court of law, and we are obligated to objectively determine facts and draw conclusions from them in order to provide the basis of an official action. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues of what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and the decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. The fire exits are on my right, which is your left, and also the back of the room where you likely entered. As to the order of this evening, each application hearing begins with the applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required, if any. We then hear from any expert witness the applicant may have to help explain the application and why variances are required. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, the attorney, and their expert witnesses. And if you're a member of the interested public but not a witness in the case, you'll have two opportunities to speak. At the end of each witness's testimony, you'll be given the opportunity to ask the witness questions about his or her testimony. And that's not the time to tell the board what you think of the application. That'll actually come at the second opportunity. But if you do have questions for the witness, you will come to the front of the room, give us your name and address, and then ask your questions related to that witness's testimony only. And after the applicant's witnesses and any objector or objector witnesses have been heard, members of the audience will then have their second opportunity to step forward. And at that time, you may express your opinions, positive or negative, about the application. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person. And at the completion of the applicant's case and public comment, the public hearing is then closed, and the board members will discuss the case and vote. At that time, you'll be able to listen to our discussion, but you will not be able to participate. Okay, and up next on our agenda is roll call.
Mayor Baskerville?
Present.
Mr. Borshoff is excused. Mr. Campbell is excused. Counselor D'Amato?
Here.
Vice Chair Graham?
Here.
Mr. Ianwali?
Here.
Mr. Falaise is excused. Ms. Willis? Here. And our new member, Mr. Orbea? Orbea.
Present.
Welcome. Oh, I'm sorry, and Chair Broda.
And I'm here. Welcome to our new member, Mr. Orbea. Thank you for joining us. And like I said, if you have any questions, let us know. Welcome. Next up is this is our reorganization meeting. So we have the report of the nominating committee.
I don't know if the nominating committee had a chance to meet, but normally what happens is this would be, I don't see a lot of change. This is really a nomination for the position of chair, yourself, vice chair, Mr. Graham, and myself as secretary, and the assistant planner, Zainab Kazmi, as the assistant secretary. So if you're satisfied with the composition of the board, what we need would be a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we leave the composition of our executive team as is.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, abstentions.
No. I seconded it.
Oh.
I said aye.
Okay. All right. I think that's it for the reorganization.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Continue serving as long as you'll have us. Next up, we have swearing in of the board professionals.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you may give tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the minutes from December 15th of last year.
I didn't receive any changes to the minutes from December 15th. So are there any comments?
I'd like to make a motion we accept the minutes.
Ms. Willis?
Second by
you-
Ms. Willis.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstention.
Abstention.
Okay.
Sorry.
Next up, we have the resolution authorizing the planning board engineer and planning board traffic engineer.
And I did get a letter from Neglia Engineering confirming that their rates have not increased from 2024. So essentially, they did increase their per meeting rate in 2025 to $390 per person. So this would maintain the 2024 hourly rates and the
Per person or
2025
per
per
hour?
meeting rate.
I think it's per person,
Per
Mayor.
person.
Yes. So it's a flat meeting fee, so if
Okay.
you know, say the traffic engineer needed to show up in
And they
addition
would
to
have the
Mr.
two of them, and
Hernandez.
Each one would get.
Correct. Each one would be $390 per person.
And who is the traffic planning board person, please?
Brian
Is it Intandola?
Okay.
Mr. Intandola,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions about this? No?
I would make a motion
Vice
to approve the renewal of
Second.
contracts.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Congratulations.
Next up, we have the resolution adopting the Sustainability and Resilience Amendment to the Unified Land Use and Circulation Element.
And just to clarify, Arthur and I worked on this resolution, and there's language in here saying that the amendment replaces the section in our current plan. There's a subchapter called Environmental Sustainability.
Yes.
So for consistency, the amendment, even though it's a separate document, because it's so large, it replaces that section. So we'll simply take that section out and renumber the pages in our unified plan,
Excellent.
okay?
Okay?
Were there any modifications from, that happened after the December 15th meeting? Or was the draft that would be voted on now the same as what was presented?
It's the same.
Okay.
I assume with the amendments that I put on the record.
Yeah.
So it's the same written copy plus anything that happened orally at that meeting.
So move?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstention.
Okay.
Next, we should note for the record, Mr. Orbea is abstaining on all of these as well. Okay, next up, we have application 2940, 260 Park Street.
Did we do the extension for Pine Street? I think we might have missed.
Oh, sorry, I
didn't
missed
do
one.
that, yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Tremblay, you sit down for a second. I skipped the resolution for 82 Pine Street.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution to extend their site plan approval?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
Okay.
I wasn't present that night.
Okay.
All right, now, application 2940, 260 Park Street.
This one works.
Perhaps it's the one where the light doesn't work, but the microphone's on? Nope.
Oh, now it's on. Okay, now we're good. Okay, good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. For the record, Alan Tremulak appearing on behalf of the applicant 260 Park Street LLC. This is a continued hearing of the applicant's site plan application to construct a three-story mixed-use building on this property. We submitted some additional revisions to the site plan and the architectural plans since the last meeting in December. And what I'd like to do this evening, and those revisions are not substantial, so this should not take too much time, but I'd like to have our site engineer, Mr. Anderson, and our project architect just briefly go through those revisions tonight, and then following their testimony, I will present our Final witness, our professional planner, traffic engineer, William Stimmel. And at that point, we will have concluded our case. So, as I said, I'd like to call Paul Anderson, recall Paul Anderson. You understand you're still under oath?
I do.
Okay.
Quick question. The letter that you wrote with respect to the definition of setback, when will that be handled?
It's up to the board. I mean, I don't, you know, I'm prepared to address that whenever the board wishes. I assume,
Right.
you know, it's been reviewed by council and
It would seem that with your planner, that would be an opportune time to discuss that.
okay.
It's a legal argument. It speaks about the definition.
I think it's a board interpretation at this. Technically, that would be an interpretation it goes before the zoning board of adjustment. But I think here, because this is a pending application before this board, your job is to interpret it. It's honestly, the staff have never interpreted that ordinance the way it was suggested at the last meeting, that you can't have a building with, it's either 0 feet or 6 feet. We've never identified that if there's something that's in between as a variance before, so.
Well, but Mr. Terry Tremolak's argument goes at the fact as to whether or not a variance is required. So if we're here to, I think we should
Right.
need to consider a variance or not before we proceed with the explanation. It seems logical to do that. But
You can deal
Well,
with it now.
It might be part of the engineer's testimony.
No,
No? I mean, the building was moved, was it not?
it was not. It was just the fact that there is an upper level that has a corbelling that sticks out that is 0 feet off the property line. So it was not moved over. It's exactly the location it was. My initial setback was from the lower level foundation.
Okay. What's corbelling? Where is that found
It's-
on the building?
Well, it's in one of the upper floors. I think I'll let Greg say exactly where that is, the architect.
Okay.
But it's not at the ground level.
Okay.
So, basically, the brick is protruding out further as you get farther up.
so the testimony that we will hear will assume that a variance is not needed for that setback? And the reliance is on this January 6th letter.
That's our
when-
position, that, you know, and, I mean, I guess our planner can also provide testimony justifying the variance. But we don't feel strongly, based upon what I've outlined in my letter and the wording of the ordinances in terms of how you define a yard and how you define setback distance. We've always, in my experience, not only in Montclair, but other municipalities, you determine the setback based upon the closest point between the building and side or rear or front yard, whatever it is. And that's the way it should be interpreted in this case. It's no different than any other ordinance in terms of how you
Well, I should say,
define-
I completely disagree with that, and I'd be happy to wait to make that argument at the appropriate time.
Well, I would hope at some point that the planner and the board attorney would weigh in on this issue, since it is involved in legal interpretation. I don't think it requires much interpretation based upon the ordinance definitions that I quoted from in my letter. But, I mean, I don't have much to add to what I already outlined in the letter. I thought it would be helpful to put it out there in writing so people can review it and react to it, so.
So, Mr. Edenwald, do you want to have that discussion now, or do you want to wait until they present their planner? Oh, is your microphone on?
Maybe it's better earlier, because then if we agree that there should be no variance, then we could proceed more easily.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so I did bring some information, and I apologize to bring the information, but I think it's important to look at the way our code is drafted. pass this around. Some of them are printed double-sided, and some are, they're different sizes, but there's double-sided and single-sided.
What are you passing out, Tony?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you give us a description, because we'll mark it as an exhibit?
You can mark it as an exhibit. It's a
Thank you.
copy of our code, it's a copy of other codes, there's a copy of the fire department's letter related to setback and so forth. This is all.
For this application?
Yes,
Okay.
there was a letter, it's on, the letter that was written by the fire department
Okay.
in October. So do you have, you can take a couple.
I don't have what you.
I have the fire department. See the next one? See the next one?
Ordinances. I
Is there an
don't,
extra
let
one?
me see. Customers one.
Okay.
Is there a spare one of those?
Is there an extra?
Are there extra
copy?
ones over there?
Can we pass one down?
Tony,
So
I just want to confirm that I count 9 pages.
yeah, and each one has a number. Some of them are 2 pages, some are 3 pages, but there's 6 items, I think, or 4 items. There's,
Board 1.
I think this is B2.
there's 5 items. Some are multi-page, some are single, but yeah, there's 9 pages, I guess.
Yeah, back and front.
Okay, so the one that's labeled number
So,
1,
Mr. Iwali, before you continue, B2, is that the right exhibit number for this? Because I believe the first package of information Mr. Ian Wally submitted was marked as B1.
I have SP. Oh, yes, I have board 1. Here it is. That's our ordinance.
okay. And I should just make the comment that the reason why side yards in this zone are either 0 or 6 feet is it's because of safety. And if it's 0, the wall is going to be a party wall essentially with a very high fire rating on it. If it's 6 feet, either or, it allows the passage, safe passage of firefighters, those that need to, do what they need to do. And it also would allow for a lower fire rating if there's a given distance. This is very standard in ordinances where buildings are, downtown sort of locations where buildings can touch. So the first sheet is the definitions which Attorney Trembulac pointed to in his letter. And the rationale in his letter was that it's a yard, and then there's subcategories of yards. But our zoning is not that way. A yard has its own definition, a front yard has a definition, a rear yard has a definition, and a side yard they each have their own definitions. And the front yard, I agree, it does say the closest point is what you measure. In the rear yard, it says the closest point. Side yard doesn't say that. So I reject the argument that somehow the definition of a yard is always at the closest point.
I think it raises an interesting question also. If we were to allow, say, a 5-inch setback, right? And then the property at 258 can build up to the property line, would be leaving an odd gap between the buildings. Doesn't that create?
It's not safe.
It's not,
It's
right?
right.
But I think, technically speaking, you're different, the setback is a point. The yard is something else. The yard is the space.
Yeah, it's
So
the side yard which is situated between the principal building, extending from the front yard to the rear yard.
That's
So it's a
always the
line.
case.
It's a line.
No, it's a space.
Well, let me just, yeah.
It is
And
a
I guess what I
space.
want you to understand is that the definition of a front yard does say it has to be the nearest location of that facade to the line.
But you
The-
can't,
Well, let me finish.
okay.
The rear yard says the same thing. The side yard purposely does not. So there's no way that we should interpret the side yard to be the same as the other two, because the definition is different. If the side yard also would be measured from the building's closest point, it would say that in the definition, and it doesn't.
I think what the issue is not the yard, is, because the yard is the open space area. The key is the setback.
That's not a defined term in our code, though. The yard is
I don't
used
know,
as a
maybe
setback.
it's, I'd have to check and see if it's a defined term in the municipal land use law.
Attorney Trembulak's argument, though, which I'm speaking to, uses the term yard. That's why
Okay,
what
I'm
I
just
have
saying,
to
if you,
reference
our
is,
definition of yard is an area in our code.
well,
an
we
open,
have 4 definitions of yards.
No. I think where the front yard is versus where the rear yard, but the yard is basically defined as an open, unoccupied space on the same lot with the building situated between the street and the other lot line and the parts of the building. Quite often, buildings are not usually in a straight line. So the yard, the depth of the yard is very rarely a constant number. You know, the yard, what's key is the setback. The side yard setback at one point of the building is usually a little bit different from the side yard setback at the other point of the building. And you always look, it's a minimum side yard setback, or you look at the closest point to make sure it meets the minimum. And then you look, in this case, there's a maximum. You would look and see where the maximum is. But it's not a straight line.
My argument is not it's a straight line.
Sorry.
My argument is that you don't take the closest point and say that's the setback. Especially in the situation where.
But yes, you do.
In situations where the setback needs to be a certain distance or greater, I agree you should use the closest point. But not for this part of the code which says it's 0 or 6. It doesn't follow that that's the appropriate measure, because it's an either or.
Then what it should say is a continuous at either 0 feet or a continuous setback of either 0 feet or 6 feet.
Correct.
Or could it be both? Could it be 0 at one point and 6 feet at another?
I don't think so. I think it's either or.
If we were to allow 258, hold on, if we were allowed 258, the next property down close to Watchung to build up to the lot line, and we were allowing the building as currently presented to go up, would we be creating any pinch points, any safety hazards? Would there be between that, if there was a straight wall, would we be creating any safety issues?
Not to my knowledge.
But if I'm not mistaken, there are some very close, right? I'll allow you to present the drawing, but I want to keep this in mind when we review this. Are we creating any pinch points or safety hazards? If 258, which they are allowed to do, were to build up to the property line.
Right, they can build it.
They can build up to the property line.
They can build the entire building at 0 feet.
Yeah, so we need to keep that in mind, I believe.
Exactly.
And I think that's part of what Mr. Inwali is talking about. The reason why it's 6 feet or 0 feet, if they build up to the property line and the other building builds up to the property line, you're not creating a safety hazard or pinch point. If one side is 6 feet or the other, you have enough room for the fire department or other safety professionals.
Let me just continue, because there are other parts of this that I want to describe.
Can I just respond to the safety, this is really not a safety issue. Safety issues will be determined by building code, fire code requirements.
But I think this side issue speaks to a safety concern, right?
Well, the purpose
The
of
ability-
this
Go ahead,
code,
Tony.
the reason why it's 0.6, and this persists in all sorts of, I've got examples here, and I can talk ad nauseum about why this exists. This is a very straightforward either-or proposition in downtown locations where it's either 0 or it's some safe distance. You don't go in between the safe distance. There are ways the International Building Code allows you maybe to go to 3 feet, but you have to do some pretty drastic things with respect to the makeup of that building. You'd have to close all the windows off, you'd have to increase the fireproofing. I agree with you, there are a lot of code issues that need to be dealt with, but the purpose of the 0 or 6 feet is specifically about safety.
But safety is an issue that's really addressed by the building codes and the fire codes, and that we're going to have to comply with all of those.
No, I
in order
understand.
to get building permits.
I have to say, when I did speak to the zoning office about this, they indicated in prior years that it was really for maintenance purposes and for appearance purposes, that to have less than, to have less than 6 feet, particularly if you have two buildings next to each other, you wanted to get some light in there so you can have some landscaping grow. You did not, they did not want it to have the two buildings so close together to attract litter.
Oh, that's another reason.
It
Yeah, I
was
agree.
purely
Yeah.
aesthetics.
Right.
But that could occur if 258 builds up to the lot line at some point, right? So
could, but it's
we need
not
to
the-
consider it, but I think that's the type of issue that the zoning department, they're not considering that that building has the right to build up to the lot line. They're just considering what exists there now, which is plenty of space, obviously.
Chair Broderick?
Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Nwale, I just have a question. So if this is turning on the question of fire safety,
Well, and I agree, it's also light and air.
well, I have a very simple
Um,
question.
And litter, yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
that, would our requirements of the construction change if there was a uniform wall, either 6 feet or at 0? In other words, like, are there
Well, yeah, if it's
NFPA
at 6 feet, the
standards?
fire requirements would be less than if it were party wall. Party walls would be very,
So
no
if it-
windows, no.
If it's a party wall and it went all the way back, that the construction would have to be different.
Well, there would I don't know whether it's 4 hours or 6 hours, it would be a higher rated with obviously no openings. no-
So
but
the
it's-
wall, so the wall.
Again, I can't speak to the specific code. What I'm trying to do is justify the fact that a variance is needed to be either 0 or 6. You can try to get a variance through this board at 3, but my argument is that I believe that it either has to be all 0 or all 6.
Okay, I'm still
And I-
asking the question about, like, let's say this building right now, as it is currently designed, is the portion that is with a 0 setback, is that designed differently in terms of its NFPA requirements or whatever it is? And the answer is yes. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the second page is West Orange codes, the same as ours essentially, where the side yards are measured continuously from the front yard to the rear yard. The third page is Bloomfield's. Bloomfield's Commercial District, if you look at letter F, no side yards are required, but they will allow a side yard of not less than 10 feet. So Bloomfield's is actually more, it requires more more space. Ours happens to be 6 feet. And you can actually see the next page is West Orange Code. I showed you the definitions 2 pages before. For minimum side yards in the B1 district, which is commercial, if it's non-residential, which in their code, it's 0, except 6 feet minimum for any side yard provided. So that's in West Orange, very similar to ours. In New York City in commercial districts, that's on page 5, no side yards are required. And interestingly, New York has a very precise definition, at least 8 feet wide at every point. So they make it very clear that it has to be at every point. But it's also clear that it's either 0 or 6. It's not 0 zigzagging all the way to 6 or wherever. It's either 0 or it's 6. And then this is the last letter, or the last piece is the letter that we received from the Montclair Fire Department. And if you go into, let's see, the second page, number 6, exposure protection. The proposed setback along the southern property line, that's the line that we're talking about, presents a mutual exposure concern between this building and the adjacent structure. In the event of fire, either building, radiant heat transfer and limited separation could accelerate exterior flame spread and restrict firefighter positioning for hose and ladder equipment. While a rated exterior wall and protected openings may satisfy code minimums, it is recommended that the applicant evaluate whether a modest increase in setback or enhanced exterior fire resistive construction could better mitigate these risks and improve long-term fire safety. I don't think that, this came out in October. I didn't hear testimony the last time that this was never really discussed. And this is a letter that was written to us. It was written to the planning board's technical review committee. Number 7 says, firefighter access and setbacks. The south elevation is proposed at or near the property line for a 29-foot length. Limited setback resists ground ladder placement and exterior hose operations. The Fire Prevention Bureau recommends maintaining a minimum operable corridor for ground ladder access on all sides of the structure. The lack of setback along the south property line also limits exposure protection to the adjacent buildings should either structure experience fire involvement. So this was written to us, and this is germane because I believe if we made it 0, which is one of the options in our code, all of this would not be an issue. I also believe if we chose the 6, or if the applicant chose the 6, which is the other option, remember it's binary, it's either 0 or 6, then any concerns that, I believe any concerns that the fire department would not be, would be satisfied.
I agree with that.
And I think to have, if it's the same structure, we've got 0, which is pretty much up against the next house, the house next door, that also has an overhang that comes over. And then you've got about 1.5 feet. Can you imagine a person trying to get back there and negotiate equipment hoses through 1.5 feet? I don't think that's the case, because that's the remainder of the setback that's given, where the whole thing should either be 0 or 6.
But if it's 0, they can't get any hoses there either, like every building on Bloomfield Avenue, with the 0 setback.
They follow the code, and that's appropriate.
Well,
It's not as appropriate as what you have, and that's in between the 0 and 6.
I disagree. Can I respond at this point? Okay, so, all right, so first of all, to go back to the definitions, and Janice was reading from this definition, I mean, there's a definition for yard, which applies to front, side, all yards. And, yeah,
I said this before, and I need to repeat
Can-
this. There's a definition for yard, there's a definition for front yard, there's a definition for rear yard, and there's a definition for side yard. There's nothing that says that what is stated in the yard definition applies to the side yard. The side yard has its own definition.
but the first point is, what's a yard, okay? Okay, and a yard is defined as open unoccupied space on the same lot with the building situated between the street or the lot line and the parts of the main building setting back from and nearest to such line. So you measure the yard from the nearest point between the building and the whatever the line is, front, rear, or side, which is what I think Janice was saying, which is the way it's always been interpreted in every application where you're talking about yards and setbacks that I've ever been involved with. And it's the way it's dealt with in other towns. I cited the definition sections in other ordinances. I don't think it's, I understand you're throwing out, West Orange, Bloomfield, New York for what they require, but every town could require something different. It's really what's a yard. And you measure the yard from the nearest point between in this case, the sideline and the building, which is 0 feet in our interpretation. Again, and with respect to the fire department, the comments you just read from in the fire department, those are recommendations. I mean, the fire official who wrote this acknowledges, basically what he's saying is, and no one can argue with this, that, the furthest apart the buildings are, the better it is. Well, okay, but we have a code that allows for no setbacks between the buildings, a 0 setback, or 6 feet or whatever. So if we comply, he's basically saying, while a rated exterior door and protected opens may satisfy code minimums, it's recommended. We're only required to satisfy code requirements. You can't you can't ignore a code requirement that says, well, this complies, But, you know, we'd like it to be further apart. You know what? If the building wasn't built, there'd be no fire hazards either. But that's not the point, you know. It's a recommendation. And the same thing with respect to the second comment. You know, he says limited setback restricts ground ladder placement and exterior hose operations. A 0 setback, which is permitted, would restrict ground ladder placement, you know, would prohibit ground ladder placement and exterior hose operations. Fire department recommends maintaining a minimal operable corridor for ground ladder access. But code doesn't require it. There's no fire code that requires it, there's no building code that requires it, and the zoning code doesn't require it. So you can't just ignore those and impose a higher requirement on this applicant or any applicant because you just think it would be safer. Obviously, it would be safer if the buildings were further apart, but that's not the issue.
But it's not just they're further apart, right? Mr. Chairman, can you address Mr. Ianwali's point about the binary choice of 0 feet or 6 feet? Because it seems to me, again, if the building next door, which has a right to build up to the property line, or 0 feet as well, that takes away some of that fire risk, right, on the side of the building. But if you have 6 feet, if they do build up to the lot line, you have 6 feet, then the fire department's able to get in. Can you address Mr. Ianwali's point that it seems like they gave a 0 setback or 6 setback binary choice for the side yard? Because you addressed this definition of yard, but what about the definition of side yard?
But side yard is a yard, so you have to go back to the definition that
No, it's a
applies.
fair point, but I can
can't-
see the logic in the 0 setback or 6 setback, right? Do you have a different interpretation of that?
My interpretation is it's 0 or 6 feet, but you define the yard based upon the closest point between the building and the line.
I think it seems to be a contradiction to me, but I will keep that in mind when
I mean,
listening to the
that's-
testimony.
It's the way it's been interpreted in every other side yard, front yard, rear yard that.
I think
and
it would-
Janice, I think, would be most appropriate to answer this. She's, reviewing
Right.
applications.
I think it
familiar
would
with
be
the code.
appropriate at this time for the board to decide whether or not a variance is required. And if a variance is required, then you provide the testimony for the variance.
That's ultimately what I was going to ask Mr. Ianwali, is your point to this that you think a variance is required?
Yeah, because it's a binary choice. It's either 0 or it's 6.
Right.
And I need to say it again, there's a specific definition of side yard. You don't need to worry about a yard because a side yard is defined.
And I
And it's different-
disagree with that.
What?
But I do disagree with that because the definition of yard applies to all, it applies to all three. It's an open area. And then the side yard has certain requirements versus a front yard has certain requirements versus a rear yard. However, you may be right. We've never identified this as a variance in my experience here in Montclair, but it may be something that the board, in this instance, because it's an issue, you may say, you know what, a variance is required. That's simple.
Okay.
In a
And I'll
property
go
where-
back to the
And we can do
definitions
that.
where a front yard, the definition of front yard mentions the shortest distance. The definition of the rear yard mentions it. The side yard does not purposely.
Carol, I can't hear
Yeah,
you.
let's make sure, Ms. Willis, that you're, and if you can move the microphone close so we make sure we get your comments on the record.
I think Mr. Nwali's point is well taken, because it does read, a yard situated between the principal building or building on the side of the lot extending from the front to the rear. So it does not say that it has to just be at one point. It says extending from the front to the rear. And it would seem to me that there is a good point being made about the distance being something that would allow someone to go from the front to the rear of the building. So I think that the point is well taken.
And if it were a zone where other properties could not build up to the property line, I think your definition makes sense, Ms. Talley. I think where one property or both can, I think we have to have other considerations
But
for
it
Mr.
doesn't
Inwani.
say that.
I
So
think
that's why
it does.
So I guess.
I think it does.
I All right, and I think we probably need to take a good look at making
Mm-hmm.
some changes to our ordinance, if that's the case, so that it's clear that it's continuous.
Because it just makes a lot of sense in terms of safety.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the definition for side yard references a yard, which then I go to the definition of yard, which strangely, the definition for rear yard does not reference yard. It references a space extending across the full width, whereas the side yard says a yard situated between the principal building or buildings. So to me, side yard does reference the definition of yard. Therefore, it would be setting back from and nearest to such line, is a lot line in this case.
And extending the length of the building.
Right, extends, well, setting back from and nearest the line. That to me says it's the nearest part of the line. Sorry, the nearest part of the building to such line is how I read that.
I'm looking at a definition on page 1 where it says side yard or yard side. A yard situated between the principal building or buildings on the sideline of the lot, extending through the front of the yard to the rear. So it sounds to me like that is not just touching someplace, but it extends the whole length with that distance.
Right.
So therefore, I think Tony's point is well taken.
So then I think the question becomes, if the board agrees this needs to be a variance, I guess the question is, what is the variance? Is the variance for the
variance
nearest
would be
point?
that it's,
Well, let me just try and
neither
outline
0
it.
or 6.
Let me see if I can outline it between, for everybody here, based on what I'm hearing. If the board feels that this needs to be a variance, is it a variance because the nearest point of the building is not at 0 or 6, or is it because the entire line of the building on the side is not at 0 or 6?
I think that's the one we're looking at.
Can
I
I
think
ask
so,
a
too.
question?
Absolutely.
I'm catching up here, so I do apologize if you guys have the background already, but the building appears to be zigzagging along that line, correct?
Correct.
Are there apartment units along that zigzagging line?
There's, I believe there's hallways and apartments along that line,
Right.
No windows.
It's,
and no windows?
there's,
No, there is-
that was my question,
there's
if
a
there are no
bedroom.
windows.
There's one bedroom which was rendered without a window.
Without a window, that's right. There was a bedroom
Doesn't, yeah, it's.
that was rendered without a window, correct.
That's also a problem.
Did that change in the recent update?
I d-
Yeah. Oh, so we have the
window was added?
architect.
So currently, there are no windows on that side at all?
One. There will be
There
one.
may be now. And the architect's nodding in the audience that there is a window now.
And at the point where there is a window, how much is the setback to the property line?
You have to-
Let's
you have to-
get the architect recalled and on a microphone, please.
This is something.
And you can either use the handheld that's on the cart, you can come up to the lectern, it's your choice. And before you provide any testimony, let's have the attorney just confirm you're under
Yeah,
oath.
you've testified before during this hearing, yes?
I have.
Could you please identify yourself for the record?
My name is Gregory Switzer.
And you recognize you remain under oath?
Yes.
Good. Please.
So I think the question you're asking is whether or not if there are windows on the southern elevation of the building. And the answer is yes. There's several. The building code says that we can do it, provided that we provide a fire separation distance of a minimum of 3 feet, and that is in an unsprinklered building, and 4 feet in a sprinklered building with no greater than 15% of that elevation in openings. And we've complied with that.
Okay, and that, the 3 feet and 4 feet that you referenced, that's from the lot line itself?
That
not
is from
an
the
adjoining
lot
building?
line. That
Okay.
is correct.
So so those distances would be maintained if the adjoining property owner were to build right up to the lot line?
And if the adjacent owner were to build a building next to it, that space would be defined as a court, where it is enclosed on 3 sides and open on 1, which is also in Montclair zoning ordinance as well.
So there'd be no means of egress from,
Absolutely, correct, because no one has a way of getting into that area. It's going to be open to the underside of our building It's a landscape buffer area, and the rear yard is wide open, and the underneath of our building is open to the street. There's no gate or anything that rolls down, so anyone that walks underneath that structure can walk straight out, back to the sidewalk, through a 24-foot wide pathway, which truncates to about 18 feet where the curb cut is. So the definition
Mr.
of
Orbea.
a space in between the two buildings is called a court when another building were to build one near. It's very common, and what it's used for is to allow light and air in buildings where buildings are adjacent to each other. Quite a few buildings in Montclair has it currently.
So I would imagine this still requires a variance.
Is your
zoning.
microphone on?
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Inman?
It still requires a variance, I suppose, because you're speaking about, well, the setback is shown as 1.5 feet because columns extend beyond that line. There are columns that are outside the building line.
That is
So the setback
correct.
is 1.5 feet there, which limits the passage, and 3 feet is not 0 or 6, so it still requires a variance.
I
My
disagree, but that's.
my concern there would be like if there is a building next to it that builds to the line, and you have a bedroom that has a 3 feet separation to a blank wall, it's not a great space to live in. That's all.
Completely understand that, yes.
Which
It's
is
permitted.
that's not my point.
And there might not be a new building built. The applicant, in choosing to build this building, accepts that risk.
I think that would be part of the variance testimony. If the board decides that a side yard setback variance is required because it doesn't meet either the 0 and the 6, it's somewhere in between, it's a variance, you provide the testimony. Very simple.
I would agree with that. And I think it's consistent with other applications we've had. I mean, the one that comes to mind is Warner Communications on Lorraine. That one, if I recall correctly, the applicant specifically requested a variance to build 6 inches off the property line just for construction purposes, because there's no way they could pour a foundation right up against the other building. They wanted to move it in for that, and what they did is they made sure that there was flashing or something over the top of it, so you wouldn't get rain in there, and there's no way to access it to get trash and such.
Wouldn't that be then the hard precedent?
I don't know if it's a hard precedent here. It's something that was
I don't-
granted under
we don't see
specific
it as a
conditions.
It's not a precedent. You have to
Yeah.
look
Right.
at the characteristics and situation on a
Correct.
site-by-site basis to justify the variance.
Right.
That's part of the
That was-
process per the municipal land use law.
Yes, that was their set of facts, is what they argued why they were entitled to a variance in that case. Is different than the set of facts here.
No, but I'm just saying, I didn't mean legally a precedent.
Oh.
I meant that, like, does the fact that Warner that Mr. Pavel had to ask for a variance to build that minimum amount off the lot line rather than to the lot line suggest to us that that's a thing, that you were either going to be at the lot line. In other words, why was that variance?
Because, you know what's different about
demanded?
this one? Usually, in this one, the building is cut out.
Right.
So it's not, it usually, in that case, like the water, it was a straight line, even if it was at an angle, whatever, it was a straight line. Here, it's a little bit different because it's cut out. So you have different setbacks at different points, pretty significant different setbacks at different points along the building. So I think it's a different situation. And, based on however you interpret it, they may need a variance because it does vary between 0 and, 3 feet.
It seems to me that they would need a variance for this. So assuming you're prepared to have Mr. Stimmel or somebody else testify to that, I'd say let's move forward on that basis if the rest of the board is in agreement.
I'm in agreement.
Very much. Okay.
See, mostly had.
Good.
Well, if you have an opinion, you're certainly welcome to,
No, I mean, I wasn't present in all the other
Right, so
meetings.
that means you can't vote, but I
Oh,
believe
okay.
you can,
Oh,
we'll still take your input certainly to this. Mr. Trembulak, did you have a question?
No, I was just considering the issue you were just discussing. I mean, he's not qualified to vote on the application.
But he can make comments.
even though he hasn't heard any of the testimony from the prior hearings.
He's a member of the board
Yeah,
and
I
can make
know.
comments.
Not trying to discourage him as a new board member, but
And just as we consider the, okay, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, as a new board member, I'm able to ask questions. Is that correct?
We discussed it beforehand.
I don't know. I'm not
Yes.
really seriously against it. It's more of a legal issue that I'm curious about since he's
I
not
don't see it
qualified
as
to
a,
vote on the
I don't see it as
application.
an issue. I mean,
Okay.
the fact that he's not going to vote, and he knows he's not going to vote, doesn't preclude him from participating in the discussion.
I also think he has some specific expertise that seems to be germane to this exact discussion right here.
Yes.
Understand. Okay.
If you just allow me just 30 more seconds. So the code for the NC is this: a minimum side yard of 8 feet is required where adjoining a residential zone. To the south is not residential, it's not 8 feet. I think they did 8 feet on the north side. No side yard is required otherwise, except that where provided, such side yard shall have a minimum width of 6 feet, period. It's pretty clear. Not 3.
So I think we've decided,
It's the
at least
same
as a
issue,
board.
How do you define the yards, which we've already beat to death, so.
We can take it for another lap if you want.
No.
But I assume you want to get to Mr. Anderson here,
Eventually.
who's been patiently listening.
Right. Just want to look up one thing before. Okay, all right. All right, so getting back to where we started a while ago, I'd like you to just review for the board the latest revisions into the site plan that were submitted a couple of weeks ago, subsequent to the December meeting.
Oh, I'd be happy to. I have SP3, which was submitted to the board, up over here, in case anybody needs to see it. They don't have it in front of you. Not to go over the issue we just talked too much, but there is a corbelling, which the architect will describe in detail, that is 0 feet. So at some point, there is a 0-foot setback, and that has been reflected in our zone table. That was the first change. Secondly, we have added a sign that was requested so people will understand that there is parking for the restaurant behind the building. So there's a small sign on the left side as you enter the building area that is directional in nature, says that parking is available. Third, we have added these vertical lines here are speed bumps. So they are strategically placed so that somebody coming out this door here will not be hit by a car going rapidly through the parking lot, because the speed bump is going to slow them down. And similarly, over here for this bump here, it's going to slow people down before they get to the stop bar to provide some safety for pedestrians on Park Street. So we put those 3 in there to slow the traffic down, traffic calming, if you will, and to make it safer. We did have a discussion with the adjoining owner who put in the sidewalk lights, and he's had tremendous difficulty with them, and he's had numerous complaints about them going off, at times that irritate people in the evening. So we said, well, if we have a better way to do it, we will try that. So this is what we believe is a better way to do it. People physically feeling that and slowing down, giving an opportunity for the pedestrians to actually see it. And the last thing that we revised was the lighting.
Before you go on to that, Paul, you may have already stated this, and I might have missed it, but with respect to the speed bumps, was that also, were they also installed in order to provide some safety with respect to that rear entrance door to the restaurant that comes off the driveway?
Yes, that's why we have 3. We have one on either side of the door that comes out, and we have one immediately before before you get to Park Street, so that when the rear wheels of the car coming out is going over Park Street, the front of the vehicle will be still short of the sidewalk, and it'll be still moving slowly, and the person there can see it. So we believe that does provide that safety for both locations.
Okay. Mr. Anderson,
Mm-hmm.
what other issues were reported to you by the neighboring owner with regard to the embedded lights?
Well, the first non-consequential is extremely expensive, and the service has been terrible in terms of getting replacement parts. And then in terms of the complaints from the neighbors, when they flash, apparently they shine into windows or they do irritated someone. So he was of the opinion that he wishes he never had to do it. There was some other alternative because it's just hasn't been, he tries to keep them operational and it does not seem to be going well. So,
Is the sense that the technology is not where it should be?
I don't know whether it's a technology or whether it's just they get damaged when people drive over them or what the story is.
Well, that
I
to me
mean, I
calls
didn't-
out the technology because
Yeah.
that's their purpose.
Yeah, and they are supposedly made for traffic locations, so I don't know what the issue is precisely.
So your plan is taking those out in favor of the speed bumps?
Yes, instead of specifying those, we put in, or a chirper, which the board chairman was saying that's just irritating as well. We thought the speed bumps would be the best alternative because people will feel them and they will slow down.
How high are they going to be?
4 to 6 inches.
Do I recall correctly that there's some sort of height warning device in the canopy, in the driveway,
Is the height device,
for oversized vehicles?
I don't know, that's not part of my plan.
Okay.
And the last revision I made was to the lighting. I tried to get rid of some of the dark spots that were on the side, excuse me.
And you can always use the handheld if you'd like.
Change it. And because it's such a narrow site, it's been a difficult design. So we have added some bollard lights along this pathway here. And I think, and that has provided adequate lighting for that area. There's a couple spots that are a little bit hot at property line. I will point out that those are at 4 feet high. So it's not like, a 12 or 14 foot high light that's at a bedroom level on the upper, that's shining. It's going to be low to the ground. I have not investigated dark lenses on the property line side of it to further limit that. I think that's probably something that should be done. The last part that we had trouble with was back in the area where we were talking about the compact spaces. It's still 0.2 and 0.3. But depending on whether the board would like to have those spaces or whether they would prefer to have less impervious, you make that choice, we'll determine that design. I could re-look at some other lighting options. Right now, we have one on the back of the building. I need to look at moving it over if those spaces are retained. We have, I believe, resolved the issue in the front yard by adding more light in the front driveway area. So I think that is okay. So I think we've made progress with the lighting. I don't know if it's 100% at this point. And if the board is okay with the design as is, that's fine. We can leave it. If there's some direction as part of a resolution, then we can certainly look to achieve that.
Yeah, I think investigating, some sort of cutoff for the adjoining property, darker lenses, whatever that is, physical shield, I think would be helpful. And then it looks like the lighting is still a little low in the driveway on the south end, 0.2, 0.3 from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, but right at the curb line, it cuts off pretty quickly.
Seems like it.
But it's hard. If I let it go too far, it spills over the property line. So I try to cut it off rigorously, and then it gets a little bit low right at the curb line. But, otherwise, I think it has sufficient lighting.
Questions from the board, or do you have more testimony, Mr. Anderson?
That's all the revisions that I had made to the plan since
Did you-
last time.
But before you finish,
Sure.
you heard the discussion about the side yard setback issue and perhaps repositioning a building or whatever. Is there anything you wanted to say about?
Well, I've never heard this argument before, and I've been doing this for a while. But if is how this is read here, then certainly the solution is to slide the building over so that is uniformly 0 feet, and then maybe have it step back to 6 feet if it has to step back in the back. And that would meet this new rigorous standard. Also, I believe, and Greg can verify this, is if we are only, 0.3 feet off the property line, I think the firewall is going to have to be the same as it is if it was 0 feet off the property line. So it is, in terms of fire safety, I don't think that's an issue. That goes back to a building department review.
Okay. So we have a question for you then. So you've represented owners of buildings that have built in either 0 or some number, 6, 8 foot, in these either 0 or some number of setbacks, and you've been able to achieve setbacks in between those two numbers with no variance? You said you'd never heard of this before. Was it that, have you actually had the experience of getting projects approved with this with a similar zoning?
So what we have is we have a 0 foot setback for the first part of the building to the corbelling, to the nearest.
But I'm not asking, I'm asking, have you been able to?
Let me finish, please.
Okay.
To the nearest point, okay? But there's other points below it, above it, within that same section that are a little bit non-zero. They step back a little bit. And then further back, it is not 0 or 6. And you've had your extended discussion about whether it should be uniformly 0 or uniformly 6. And that's the part I have not heard. I have had numerous applications where it is 0 at one point, and it goes back to 2, and then to 3, and then back to 0, and it comes in and out because the building articulates. And we get those approved without variances. So the definition that you're discussing is new to me.
When the zoning code says either 0 or 6 or 0 or some number, you get it approved without variance?
If it is 0 at one point, and it meets the 0 requirement by that nearest point, there's no variance required in my experience in other municipalities with their definitions.
Including a similar zone where two buildings could essentially meet at 0?
They have almost identical setback requirements, 0 or 6 or 0 or 8, like was mentioned before. And yes, I mean, if you have 0 at some point, that's what they say is the nearest point. And that's how I've always seen it interpreted.
And to Mr. Ianwali's point, you've had applications in similar zones where the 2 points could meet?
Yes, yes. So, I mean, in those zones, those buildings can touch. They might touch at one point and then deviate at other points. But that's how that was interpreted in other municipalities.
Other questions?
So they could touch at the front and the back and leave a gap of a foot in between?
That's yes, that is how.
That seems pretty dangerous.
I don't see how it's dangerous. People can't get in there, but if the firewall.
Seems like that would create a chimney.
Well, the building code will interpret that, what has to be built fire-wise there. So that's more Greg's field.
Other questions from the board? Mr. Trembulak, is Mr. Switzer going to testify after Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
He will, okay, so
He's the next witness.
so even though he's, okay, so I'm
Yeah,
going
he's
to.
got more.
He has more to go through.
Not a lot,
Okay,
but
so
yeah.
I'll hold questions from the public for him until after he testifies. So anybody from the public wish to ask Mr. Anderson questions about his testimony tonight? If so, please step up to the lectern here. Yeah? No, not yet. Well, so right now it's questions about the expert witness's testimony. After all of the expert witnesses that Mr. Trembulak has, then there will be a time when you can make a comment on anything about the application. If you give us your name and address, yeah, make sure that green light's on, that'd be helpful. Thank
Green
you.
light's on. Thank you. My name's Erich Navroji. I'm the occupant owner of 262 Park Street. So the the
Spell
property
your last
on the-
name.
on the other side, not the southern side. My last name is N for Nancy, Owrojee.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Very quickly, Mr. Anderson, just one question for you. You were speaking about lighting, and I assumed you were speaking about lighting on the southern side where the driveway is. What is the lighting on the other side facing my property?
So I was actually speaking about lighting on the entire site, and one, on your driveway is one of the areas that still has 1.5-foot candles and 1.7-foot candles at 2 points coming from a bollard light that's 4 feet high.
Okay.
And so that exceeds the limit, and I still need to look at possible ways to refine that by either cutting off the light on your side or do something, but it was asked to have more light in those areas because it was too dark at the past meeting. So I was trying to get safer light on the sidewalk, on that sidewalk that's between this property and your property.
Okay. And is it a fair expectation that the light will not spill over into my property and will be subject to whatever the metric is, the code metric?
It is a fair assumption. Right now, if you look at the drawing that's behind you on the board, those numbers that,
Could you show me?
yes, I can. So this is your property line, and here is your driveway. So right now, we have at the curb line 0.2-foot candles and 0.4-foot candles at the property line. So this should be 0.3, but this is a very light amount, and by the time it gets across your driveway, it's virtually gone.
Okay. And what is the requirement for the light crossing the boundary line?
0.3,
0.3. So
Yeah.
you're over here and you're over here and here.
correct.
Okay. And how do I verify that the lights will be corrected? Or is there some way in which, we can get confirmation that these will be reduced appropriately?
Well, if the board chooses to approve the application, then there would very likely be a condition that those standards are met. Okay, and if that's the case, then that design would have to go forward and be built, reviewed. The plan would be reviewed and, and built in accordance. The property would be built in accordance with the plan, so we would meet that standard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Chair, could I ask that the board please consider that in any approval process, that the lighting be reduced to the required amounts at the areas where it goes over?
They would have to, yes.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Could I ask a question following on that? Did I understand you to be saying that you're still working out that design for that area of the site? For the
I
lighting?
have safe and adequate light there. It's just a little bit too hot in a couple spots, and I am working on ways to eliminate that. I wanted to present this to the board. We got it in 10 days prior to. It shows some improvement. I don't know that it's already all the way there yet. So, it needs a little bit more work.
Other questions from the public for Mr. Anderson?
Hi, Mr. Anderson.
Hello, Claire.
Claire Ciliata, 279 Park Street. The question I have, Mr. Anderson, is that with all of this talk about access by the fire department, you have 1, 2, 3 electric, for electric vehicles, right?
Yes.
And they're all the way at the back? I'm trying to understand where they are. Are they under the building? Are they outside the building? Because that, to me, would be a major concern for an electrical fire. Because if there's one of those and a car is attached, you've got a huge fire. So I'm trying to understand how the fire department can get there, and whether they're placed in such a way to minimize, if that happens, to minimize what will happen to the building next door.
So, Mr.
And
Anderson,
I haven't heard that discussed at all, so I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, I do think we discussed it briefly last time, but
Yeah.
I'll be glad to go over it again. So we had initially all the EV charging stations up in the, what I'll call the front of the lot, right next to the building where it comes down near the commercial space. The fire department had an objection to that
Yeah.
because they always do. Every fire department in every community is
As they
concerned
should.
about this. But we're obligated to have at least one EV charging space by the ADA space, which needs to be the closest proximity to the door with an accessible pathway. So currently, we have one EV charging station that's next to the handicap space, near the commercial space in the front, and we have one that's outside the back of the building, the farthest possible space in the back.
Is that a state law, or that you said you're required?
Yes. It's
So
it's state law to have the EV charging stations.
So how does that fit in? See, I'm like, okay, so now you have a handicapped person and a car on fire, and you're very close to the building. Help me understand how that makes sense.
I think they don't want to discriminate against handicapped people who may have an electrical vehicle and have the ability to charge their vehicle.
Okay. So on that side, though, is there easy access? Because I get confused with the two sides with how much width. Is there easy access for the fire department to get in there, should there be a fire?
Well, first, I mean, I'm not a fireman in Montclair or anywhere, but I don't see people driving fire trucks under the building.
No, I just meant.
And so I think if there was a fire in the building, they would likely be dragging hose right down the driveway, which is 18 feet wide minimum, all the way to the back where you have an access aisle, and then using those. So in terms of ease of access, yes, they would have easy access to get in there that way.
Okay, and if they needed to get in from the sides?
Well, if you have a 0-foot setback on one side and somebody builds the building, you're not getting in from the south.
Okay.
But that's a building code issue as opposed to the zoning board.
I find it extraordinary that the building code holds over common sense, but that's another story. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good evening.
Evening.
Hello.
Hi, Donna Pickett, 255 Park Street. You mentioned this was a difficult design. Can you explain that, what you meant by that?
For the lighting, it's a narrow site. You have a ceiling that sets the height of where lights are mounted, and you have a strict cutoff at the property line. You have a building that goes, you have to have light immediately underneath the building at all locations to meet the lighting requirement to have a safe, to have a safe and adequate lighting for the people using the building, but it has to be cut off directly in a very short horizontal distance.
So maybe the building doesn't really belong there, but that's besides the point. Did you read the master plan on page 22, the ordinance about light pollution in Montclair, when you were doing your lighting design?
No, I read the ordinance requirements, not the master plan.
Okay, so I would just take a look again at that ordinance, and then I would just ask the board to take into consideration our goals for noise and light pollution with this project. So you mentioned lights going on and off, possibly?
That was with a safety system that was employed on a project adjacent to this, or one property removed.
Is it a definite that the lights, so cars going in at nighttime, it's seven apartments, we got Amazon, ride shares, visitors. So you need to take that into consideration about lights going on and off if someone's complained about, I guess it was the Westerly or some other lights.
Yes, correct.
So I'd like the board to take that into consideration, new way of life. This is just, constant traffic in and out of this building. People visiting, coming in and out, working, like I said, Amazon, UPS, ride shares. So when you think about the lights, we don't want them flickering all the time. I would think something soft and constant.
So if I can just clarify, maybe you misunderstood me. I specifically said we did not want to do that. I put in speed bumps, which are physical on the ground, so lights do not go off and on and irritate people, which is your
Okay.
point. So I think we've,
Okay, so that's good.
yeah.
Okay, so then I misunderstood that. So that's good.
Unknown caller.
All right, I think that's all the questions I have.
Okay, thank you.
But please do look at the master plan, page 22.
Okay.
I'd like for us to adhere to our overall goals of what we want to achieve here in Montclair as far as livability.
Okay.
Okay.
Fire department.
Jay Turner, 274 Park Street. Jay Turner. Mr. Anderson, I just wanted to go back over something I think you said. Did I understand you correctly that you reached out to the owners of the Westerly to ask them about the lights that they embedded in the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yes. And they presented to you that those lights they put in worked, and then they broke, and they got parts for them and fixed those lights, and it's been an ongoing maintenance issue for them? Is that how it was presented to you?
Yeah, I don't know the blow by blow, but that's essentially correct.
Okay. So, all right. I just wanted, I'll be back for a comment at the right time on that. Thank you.
Sounds good, thank you. Any other members of the public want to ask Mr. Anderson questions about his testimony? Okay, I see none.
All right.
Okay, then I would recall Gregory Switzer.
Sir, you've already put your appearance on the record and acknowledged that you're under oath.
Yes.
So Greg, I'd like your office submitted revised plans a couple
Yes.
of weeks ago,
Yes.
subsequent to the last meeting before this board.
Yes.
So just as I did with Mr. Anderson, I'd like you to discuss with the board those areas or portions of the plans, your architectural plans that have been revised since the last meeting.
Sure. Just want to start, I guess, with the landscaping portion of the project. We have close to 50 evergreen trees that we are planting between our property and the adjacent residential property that's next door to us to create a barrier between our property and the fence. And should the fence ever decide to be moved, then we'd have a natural barrier there in place.
So that's on the north side of your property?
That is, pardon?
It's on the north side of your property?
That is on the north side of the property, yes. Since the last iteration of our drawings, we also removed the balcony, which was on the southern portion of the building, to the northern side of the building. You should be able to see that in the drawings that was presented to you. That would be on sheet A102. And it would be the north elevation, which is the long elevation in the center. And moving from right to left, it is the balcony on the second floor that you'll see there. Okay. Also, just in response to some of the fire department comments, just wanted to reiterate and acknowledge that the building does have an automatic fire sprinkler system. The building is designed with two means of egress. One does egress through the parking area. The other egress is directly onto the sidewalk that's on the side of the building, on the northern portion of the site, and egress is straight out to the sidewalk. We are also installing a fully compliant fire alarm system in the building. We do have Knox boxes or a Knox box that we will install in the building lobby. For those of you that don't know what that is, particularly the public perhaps, a Knox box is just simply a box that a key is placed in that gives the fire department secure access to the apartment building above, so, and all of the doors and locks that are within the building. We also spoke about relocating the refuse storage containment from the exterior rear yard to the inner portion of the building.
But that was part of the last revisions, right? That hasn't changed since.
That has not
since the
changed.
December
That is
meeting.
correct.
So we already reviewed that.
That is correct. And then what I'd like to do, just, there was a graphic that was issued that was incorrect. And it simply shows the western street elevations of the building. I think that the images that you may have are incorrect. We spoke about that previously, and I'm bringing the corrected version of that, just so you can have it. Should I pass this out, or how would you like to?
Number for the board.
I do.
So this, just to be clear, the streetscape that was previously presented did not actually show the actual setbacks between the buildings and the lot lines.
It's somewhat it did. It's an odd situation. The fact is that the actual lots are not perpendicular to the street. So when my draftsperson did the drawings, he did it from the street and not from the actual corner or the point of the building, and creating parallel lines. So this shows the building at the 0 lot line. Can you put that picture up?
I marked this as,
I don't know if your microphone's on, Ms. Talley. Thank you.
I marked this as A19, A21.
21.
Thanks. Thank you.
So hopefully that graphic will clarify this building in relationship to the other properties on that same elevation.
And it also shows where the property lines are.
That is
I
correct.
think that was not shown on the prior plan.
That is correct. Okay, and we also showed the 8-foot property line setback on the northern portion of the building. I'm also, I guess, I need to clarify what the corbelling is. There was a question about that. But basically, the corbelling is a decorative motif where you have just a very flat face of a surface. And let's say that we wanted to put a crown molding, if you would, and there's a projection of stone or cast stone or brick or whatever it is, aluminum, whatever it is, it projects beyond the actual vertical face of the wall. That portion is called corbelling, and we cannot allow that corbelling to extend beyond the property line. So that's where that 0 point start in our building design, and it's always been that way, even from our first iteration of the design. So nothing has changed there. It's just, I guess, clearly understanding what the question is and answering it to hopefully your satisfaction.
Sorry, just to clarify, you're saying it's 0.3 on the side because of the corbelling? Is that, can you just clarify that? The distance?
Yeah, it's about 3 3/4, almost 4 inches, where the corbelling actually interacts with the property line.
Okay.
And then the corbelling comes around, and then it goes straight down. And that's where that question initially came about the property being at the 0 property line. I was asked during my initial testimony whether or not, if the building was built at the 0, that 0 point, and I said yes, but then there were questions about it because someone had questions about, well, there's a 4-inch deviation. I wanted to explain why that deviation was there. So I guess, in effect, both questions are correct. You know, both answers were correct.
So the corbelling's at the very top of the building?
It's not just at the top of the building. It's also detailed ornamentation that occurs along that entire frieze. And then it comes all the way down, and then there's some projections as well, just before the building lands onto the cast stone at the base. So it creates a really nice line. Otherwise, it would just be a brutal, hard line stop along that property line, and it would look quite odd and awkward. And that's one of the reasons why we did that, to really tie that in and finesse the design to make it look continuous around.
Is it possible to create that effect without the protrusion?
Yes, it is possible to do that. My gut is telling me that it's not going to look as nice, but that's an architect, right?
But you could, right? Because you could lose it when that other building comes
yes,
up next to it anyway.
exactly,
So that's,
exactly.
yeah. Got it.
Exactly.
And just so that I am clear, it's
Yes.
the corbelling that meets the 0.00.
Absolutely, yes.
The rest of the building, the foundation of the building is,
Setback, and that's another reason why you kind of captured some of that information earlier with the foundation and the construction of that sort of thing. That also gives us that little variance of 4 inches to do what we need to do without extending a footing or anything that close to the property line. So there's a whole bunch of other subtle nuances that would benefit from that building being set back at least that minimal dimension. Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
Mr. Switzer, the 17 Taylor junipers that you have on the south side of the lot line.
Yes.
What is the actual, so they are screening the garage area,
Exactly.
but even existing now, there, a lot of this plant is going to be in shade. I mean, but you have.
I'm sorry, a lot of this plan is going to be.
These plants will be in shade, and certainly if another building is built. Like, these plants will not survive another building being built to the lot line, correct?
Yes.
Probably not. They
Probably not. I mean, that's, yeah.
So will they, by definition, you're showing, I mean, they will, at maturity, a fast-growing plant, trees will extend over the lot line by necessity.
As in, yes, as in most, natural growing things, it's uncontrolled. They can spread in any direction, yes.
Okay.
The
Sorry,
plants,
just to
however,
clarify,
if
those
you,
are-
just to.
Are the trees on the north side, are we talking
South
about?
side.
Oh, south
Both,
side.
The
but
south side is-
just to,
Okay.
if you look at the drawing that was submitted to you, at the bottom, there are images there of the Taylor greens. And if you'll see, they're very tightly grown,
Yeah, I know
and
the
they go
tree.
straight upright, so it's not like.
But what is the setback here, let's say, at the, where it says, it's pretty straight going back from the lattice area after that, when you have this row of 17 trees, what is the actual setback that they have at that point from that little wall, which is, I guess, a knee wall?
It's approximately 4 feet, yes.
It's 4 feet. Okay.
Yes.
I thought, did you say it was 3 before? The windows are 3 feet from the property line? so the
No,
setback-
I said that we built the south elevation to code, and I stated that at 3 feet, we would be allowed to put windows into the building if it were unsprinklered. But at 4 feet back, with the sprinklered building, we were allowed to put 15% of that side. We were allowed to put openings in that side based on the building code.
Okay, so the setback is 4 feet. It's 0, close to 0 toward the front, then it goes to 4 feet. in the
It's
back.
0 at the front, then it goes down 29 feet, and then you have substructure that goes along. So technically, the space is in between the building or the property lines. That's that green area that we're talking about, yes.
So that's 4 feet, except the columns. The columns jut out.
That is correct.
And you-
That's a
on
part
the-
of structure.
On the site plan, you've got 1.5 feet for the columns.
That is correct.
But above, you're saying, is that measured on, see, the architecturals float in space. The architecturals really aren't. We have the garage on the site plan, but we don't have the building. It's hard to look at.
Yeah,
It's
if you
hard
look
to
at the
two, so-
floor plans, for example, let's just pick one and see whether or not if we clearly identified the dimensions there for you. Let's suggest sheet A101. And when you look at the south elevation,
I'm sorry, you said 8?
A101, A as in apple, 101. Okay, so the columns themselves that you see projecting from this, or the structure that you see projecting from the building at the upper floors are 30 inches alone.
Okay, when I look at the plan, though, the lot line isn't shown, so what's the best plan that you have that shows the building and the lot line on the same plan?
Well, actually, if you look at sheet A101 and look at the bottom plan, and I stand corrected here, it is 3 feet 10 inches, the setback, and it's dimensioned in the far left corner there. And that's in alignment with.
So that dotted line that, hold on.
And it's in alignment with the corner at the end.
Okay, so that little dash there is 310 to that other, well, it's a little dash, that's what it looks like. It doesn't look like a property line, but if that's what it is.
Yeah, the property line is illustrated on, I would assume, L101, which shows the overall site. And it would be that solid line that separates from front to back, directly between the two-story frame dwelling and the two-story frame building in the rear. There's a straight line that goes from front to back.
Yeah, so this is the property line, supposedly, with no label.
Is that the property line, or is that just the edge of the building?
Well, at the front, it is keep in mind, as we stated, that.
Or I should
that's
say, is that where the
0, 0.
corbelling, is that to the corbelling, or is that to the main wall? I'm trying to use your
Good, good,
terminology
good,
here,
good,
just so it's
good.
clear to the board.
Valid. It is to the corbelling, that is
To the
correct.
outside of the corbelling. so-
Outside of the corbelling, which is structure, that is
so-
correct.
And that is the lot line, as
That
we've
is the lot
established.
line.
That's
That
on
is
the lot
correct.
line.
That is
Okay.
correct.
Thank you. Do you have more to present to us? I see you have a materials
Yes,
board.
I do. There was also a request for materials to be shown. I've brought them here. I'm not sure what is the best way to illustrate this, but I'll just start by holding them up and showing you, and then I can bring them up to you and you can pass them around.
Sounds good.
Okay, good. So, first card here is the brick.
And do you want to mark these now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be,
22.
yes, 822.
Can,
A22 for both,
no,
or A22 and A23?
I think it's better to do A23.
Okay, so A22 is the red brick, what it looks like?
Yes. And then
A23 will
23
be
is the cast stone.
cast stone.
Yes, and it's indicated on the card with an arrow pointing at the actual color sample.
Okay,
And then I brought a sample to show you the color of the cement board material that we'll be using on the side.
A24.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I need to explain what A22 is first.
Yes, so A22 is the predominant brick masonry that's used in the front and on the sides for that first 29 feet wraparound from the front facade to the sides. Then it steps back, and then we change the material, particularly on the upper floors, to the cement fiberboard material that'll be on floors 1 and 2.
I'm not understanding. These are different.
It is all different, but what you're seeing is a variation of how this would show up on site. It's not one uniform color. It has a whole bunch of striations and textures in the masonry.
Okay.
And this is just giving you a general idea of what that is. Pardon? Oh, sure.
But it is brick.
It is 100% brick.
And what happens after a year, 2 years, 3 years? Does the brick absorb the detritus in the air, and does the coloration subside from its light red color to something less, perhaps?
Well, the brick in general is somewhat porous. We try and get a product that, stands up to time. When I say that, as in not absorbing too much moisture to where over time it just becomes, weak and crumbles. But this is very hard, vitrified brick units. They've been in kilns, they're dried. It's, pretty solid and stable, and I would suggest have, a lifetime of well over 100 years. I don't expect anything unusual to occur with this.
Is this similar in makeup, if you know, to the Westerly brick?
It's the same manufacturer to be, yes, it's the same manufacturer of the product. It's just a different colorway. Yes.
Did you say it's going to be thin brick or full brick?
It's full brick,
Okay.
yes.
Now, what about 823?
A23 is the cast stone. This is used primarily at the base of the building.
And you're referring to, the arrow refers to the stone that's named, was it Savannah?
Yes,
What's it called?
Savannah.
Havana or Savannah?
Savannah.
Savannah.
Two great places. And then
Yeah.
sure, and then for the public, it is this color, along with this. I'll just put this up again. You're welcome. And this is the concrete board.
And where will that typically be found on the building?
On the upper floors, starting about 2/3 of the way back, and wraps around to the rear, all the way around to the opposite side, to where that 29 feet of brick masonry wall, where it meets at the 0 property line. With the corbelling.
With the corbelling, thank you. As you're picking up, we have to be very exact.
No,
about our language.
and I respect that, thank you.
Mr. Switzer, you'll have to leave those samples
Yes.
with my office. With me.
Does anybody from the board want to see those samples? If we pass them around?
Do you want me to pass these?
Figured I'd ask. No one seems to be jumping at it, so. Do you have more for us, Mr. Switzer?
I am substantially finished with my testimony. I don't see anything else other than what I presented to you as a material change. I don't believe that I've missed anything, and if so,
I don't think you have.
it's certainly unintended.
I think you've covered everything. There are only a few revisions that
Yeah.
you've discussed, so that's all I have.
Okay, questions from the board?
I guess if you, I respect the artistic vision, but if you were to remove the corbelling, could you move it up to the property line, the building?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the board?
I would just ask you to repeat what you asked.
So the building, we're measuring where it hits the property line from the corbelling. And if we were to remove the corbelling, the foundation itself could be moved up to the property line, eliminating the issue that Mr. Ian Wally pointed out, the concern about that 0 or 6, and creating a gap that could cause a safety concern. I think we still need to better understand those other 3 feet.
Yeah. If I may, and just add just something simple.
Courtyards, yeah.
The area that with the area that we are trying to call a side yard is typically continuous from the front all the way to the back. And the fact that we have structure that actually impede into that area, it's actually an extension of the structure, so it's not really a yard. It's open to the outside, but it's still a part of the architectural structure. So those piers or those columns that you see along that side, it's structure, it's not yard.
Oh, no, fair enough, but I think
Yeah.
we're still thinking about the idea of the adjacent property can be built up to the property line. So if we do have that corbelling, we still create the chimney effect that Mr. Inwali discussed.
Understood, okay.
And I think there's a real concern, I mean, if
Right.
it leaves or something, you know, somebody throws a
Right.
cigarette, who knows, right? So
Right.
I think eliminating that corbelling, I think we probably do need to better understand the courtyards, the 3 feet courtyards.
So I think that we're looking at this kind of wrong, because it isn't two buildings.
It's not two buildings, Mr.
It's not two buildings
Counselor.
pushed up together. At the bottom, at least, we're dealing with something that is different than a traditional building in a city, because it's a cantilevered building that's open on the sides, on both sides.
But my concern is
So
that,
there's no court, there's no air shaft, it's wide open.
right, but the concern is that 258 is permitted to build up
258,
to the property line.
Right, built to it.
Right.
It would be on the ground level, there would be a brick wall against one side of a garage. It's still, it's not a wall. It's
I'm
only
not
a
sure I
wall.
follow when you say it's not a wall.
I'm saying that people, when you look at it because of the schematics, that you're forgetting that like the first 12 feet is wide open on both sides. It's only above. So the traditional way you're thinking about a building, it's that it's going to be touching, going down to the floor. And here we just have a very different situation. So for fire suppression, for example, you could have a firewall here, but like, let's say in the horrible situation that you had a car fire or something, it's wide open to the next building. It's, you know, you could have a block of them and you could see down the whole block, correct?
That is correct.
So it's I'm not, I'm just saying.
And it's
a
consistent
different-
with even what's at the Westerly now. It's open on that rear yard side and
Right.
at the back.
No, in the south also?
No, I
That's the
don't
concern.
believe so.
Right.
There's
So that's,
yeah.
so that, Counselor, is the concern, right? On the south side, it's not as wide open.
But it is wide open on the south in the parking structure.
After 29
But just
feet.
not in the
After
front.
29 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, the front it isn't, but as soon as you get underneath the deck, you'll see that it's open. and you
You're
can
not, so in
see-
other words, if you needed to get for fire suppression to the side of the building, you would just walk right in through the garage and point up. Like you're
Or you
not-
can walk along that 8-foot path that we've created on the side of the building. and-
No, I'm saying on the south side.
Okay.
On the south side, you would go into the garage and you would
Spray
be right
upward.
there, it's wide open. It's not a building.
Well, we should wait until, question period.
Yes. The building is 100% sprinkler. In fact, sprinkler would be in the apartments as well as the parking area below, and any crevices or spaces or pockets that's required by code to be
So just,
sprinklered.
so you said the parking area will
That
be
is correct.
sprinklered, as will the entire building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was part of my earlier testimony.
That constitutes fully sprinklered, right?
That is correct.
I have just a quick question. I thought I understood you to say that if the building is up against the property line, that creates a problem for construction purposes. Is that not
No,
correct?
we're talking about foundation and footing and placement during the initial construction portion of it.
Right.
It's best to have an offset footing there, and that's part of the reason why those piers are set back just a little bit, because with the spread footing, it's going to go beyond. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we keep our footings on our property and not go beyond and onto the other property.
And I think I appreciate that, but getting back to your question, if the corbelling is removed,
Yes.
I think you testified that you could
Yeah.
move the
Yeah.
building to the property
Yeah,
line.
we'll figure it out.
Right, but
Yeah.
that was my question. Isn't there a consideration for construction purposes at that point?
Yeah, it's just a matter of, I guess more elaborate detailing and structural drawings that would illustrate a foundation wall that could, you can rest masonry units on top of and build upward. But again, the building itself only has 29 feet of that on one side. The front of the property is clear and free, so we can pretty much do whatever we need to. And on the north side of the property, that's the same, because we have that 8-foot setback, so it should be pretty easy to do that. It's just that 29 feet at the southern portion of the building that, it's just a design challenge.
But just to clarify, that 29 feet could be moved to the property line and eliminate that issue,
I'm
that
sure
gap.
that we can have masonry units go along that side wall and do what we need to do.
Okay.
It certainly isn't a problem. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So where are we with the variance? Back to, if a side yard is, no side yard is required, except when provided it shall be 6 feet. That's clearly in need of a variance. I didn't hear any testimony that a variance is needed. It seems like presumption from the applicant is that we don't need to talk about it.
I don't believe we have a side yard, because a side yard is defined as a continuous path along from the front yard that extends all the way to the back. And what you see there is a 29-foot solid wall, which breaks that. So that's not side. Otherwise, we would be building that front portion of the building in the side yard, which would not be permitted. And then we have structure that extend along the side of the building as well, in the form of those piers that extend or cascade along through the rest of the length of the building. So theoretically, there is no side yard.
So it's 0? It's not 3. What is the side yard?
Is your
There is no
microphone
side
on,
yard.
Mr. Ianwali? Mr. Ianwali, is your microphone on?
So there's no measurement of the side yard?
There is a space that is between the building and the property line that is approximately up to 3 feet 10 in the widest point, and maybe just about a foot to the property line, but that's not a side yard. And again, there's structure there. Those piers are structural elements that are dotting that entire length of that property line there. So there really isn't a side yard.
I'm not sure if structures are excluded. I know that fire escapes are, there's certain things that are excluded from where a yard is measured, but that's not the point. I mean, my point is that the code says where there's a side yard, which is the distance between the building, it either has to be 0 or 6. And nothing, no argument, I have not heard any argument that, yeah, it's okay to be 3 feet. So we've got a portion of it at close to 0 and some of it at 3. It's
Well,
not
you haven't
0 or
heard-
6.
You haven't heard our planning testimony yet.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
talk
All right, so
about
then- all right.
the
Okay,
variances.
all right.
We think there's only one, but he'll talk about
Okay.
2 of them.
All right. All right,
He's
so
not
then-
here to justify the variance.
Okay, so the planner will, so then you're agreeing that a variance is needed?
No.
Or you're not?
I disagree, but the board's already made its determination on that. I
So
respectfully
That is a variance
disagree.
needed or not?
But
That was the general sense of the board
Okay.
when we had this discussion,
Okay.
the beginning of the night, is that
Okay.
I don't think we've solved, well, loosely, I think everyone's kind of head nodding like yes, but I don't think we've solved whether it is needed because their nearest point is at 0.3 feet outside of the corbelling. I'm leaving the corbelling issue off the table for the moment, but the 0.3 feet, or whether because it undulates along the entire length of that lot line, is that a different variance than the 0.3 being the nearest point? But I think in general, the board felt that a variance is needed for side yard setback. And the applicant disagrees, but the applicant also said, as Mr. Tremblay just reiterated, they will provide expert testimony regarding either the need for that variance or justifying it under, I assume, C1 or C2.
we don't think it's a variance, as I said.
Right.
I respect the board's determination. If it is a variance, we think it's a minor variance that's easily justifiable, and we'll present proofs.
To Councilor D'Amato's earlier point about the majority of that south side being open parking lot area, is there any other area that you could think of that could be a pinch point, that could be a safety concern, that could be a chimney, to Mr. Ianwali's point?
No.
Okay. Do you agree, Mr. Ianwali?
With your microphone on.
I suppose, but we're not what I'm interpreting is the zoning code of either 0 or 6 feet. My belief is that the zoning code is put in place to predict proper safety. But I'm not in a position to answer questions about whether it's safe or not, because that's not my role.
No,
on the board.
understood. I'm just trying,
Yeah.
you'd mentioned the chimney concern. I was just wondering if
Yeah.
you still see it
Well,
as a...
because that's why it needs to be 0 or 6. I keep going back to that point, which is rather clear. A lot of downtown buildings are touching. Or if
Right.
they're apart a sufficient width for light, air, safety, and so forth.
If
Not-
we were to...
Suppose all buildings were 1 foot apart. That'd be weird.
But if we were to remove the corbelling and move it up to the lot line to 0, would that eliminate much of the concern?
No, I mean, the concern is that it's not 0 or 6. I mean, if you call the first 29 feet, if it's 0, okay, that's 0. But the rest of the building is not 0 or 6.
No, understood. And then we would have to grant a variance at that point if
Right.
we think it's
Right.
if we think
Right.
it's acceptable. So, yeah.
Would it also be, would you consider the piers that you see along that side to go all the way to 0 as well?
I mean, if
The piers along the property line at the southern portion of the building, the structure? Because it's really structure, because that, what you see there is not necessarily an enclosed wall, but it's supporting the structure above. And at that point of, after you've passed the garage, the building steps back, right, just to here, and then you have windows. So my question to you is, if we were to bring those piers and plant them squarely along that 0-degree line, would you consider that, being that it's structure at this point, that's continuously going there, whether or not if there are openings in it or not, as being built on the side, the side, that would mitigate the side yard question you have? Would that address that?
that's hard for me to answer because the code says that the setback has to be 0 or 6, and very simply, it's the building line. You know, when we talk about these downtown districts, they could be 3 stories. And if you're building on the property line, these buildings are generally touching in 3 stories or 2.5 stories. They're not, maybe not touching on the first floor, but then they're closer. You know, you look at Bloomfield Avenue. The buildings touch.
No, I understand.
They don't have these varying gaps. And I think that this zone, the neighborhood commercial zone, was expanded by a couple of lots in different directions. And Watchung Plaza's buildings basically touch each other, or they have walking paths. Like if you go, I forget, Bluestone, one of the, you know what I'm talking about in Watchung Plaza. And when this zone was expanded, my assumption was that it would be expanded and it would replicate the characteristics of what Bloomfield, what Watchung Center is, Watchung Plaza is. So this building, if it replicated the other neighborhood commercial, would probably touch the other building. We have it would probably be out to the street and it would touch the other buildings, just like Watchung Plaza, all the other Watchung Plaza buildings, the bank all the way through. We do have a couple of alleyways that allow people to walk and light and air, but we don't have too many situations where there are these odd gaps.
So this building, I mean, we have to face a fact here, which is that this building is, on some levels, a logical impossibility in this zone, because you cannot have a block of these buildings with 0 setback, because the building is so deep that to make it work, am I correct, you need to have windows on the sides.
Absolutely.
So
in order to even make it an occupiable.
To make it an occupiable building, they cannot be stacked next to each other.
Cannot.
So
Well, but
literally,
the zoning, that's why the zoning gives you either 0 or 6, because 6 works beautifully.
No, 6
I have a
doesn't work
question.
in this
Well,
building.
well, it
because-
certainly works for windows, so you have an option of going 6. When it gets tighter, it's more difficult. So, and I think that's what the zoning predicts. Make them touch each other or make it 6 so that it's comfortable. It doesn't give you any leeway my reading, again, I don't want to repeat myself, well, you guys are going to throw me out of here pretty soon, but, you know.
I just want to just challenge you with just one thought. So let's say at the zero line that separates the two properties, we built a 4-foot wall. That's theoretically the same, right? There's nothing in zoning that suggests that wall has to be 10 feet high, 20 feet high, 40
You're right.
feet high.
But I don't think that's its intent, but I'm arguing against intent before, and I can't argue, or, you know, so.
Touche.
Yeah.
So theoretically, I mean, we can easily put a 18-inch curb along there in its structure. It is built 100% zero from the front all the way to the back. And we've actually met the zoning code by definition. But it's a useless waste of money and time, and it's not really.
You mean, I'm sorry,
It's-
to have a step back then in the second and third floor?
No, I mean, he's saying that we have to build structure along the property line at zero. That structure could be 18 inches tall. Who's to say that structure has to, there's no
Well, I think the
place.
presumption is that in
We
most
can't
of
make
the.
assumptions.
I know.
Yeah,
but-
we can't make
But if you,
assumptions. Yeah.
in downtowns, the buildings generally for their height
But-
touch and.
I think in
But
trade.
they
the
might-
question, and this goes to your question, you know, the building line, they can build, you measure the setback at the closest, where it's closest to the property line. So perhaps vertically, it goes in. It doesn't have to be zero going all the way up.
That's the point. It
If-
could be 12 inches off the
There's nothing in there
ground.
that's set, side yard setback is measured at a point. And what we're trying to do is, instead of having it a point where the building is closest to the property line, you now want to make it continuous at multiple points
Correct.
where the building meets is adjacent, closest
We
to
can
the
easily
property
do
line
that.
along the entire, but you can't do it in the third dimension vertically.
Why not?
Because there's no
There's no basis for that.
zoning basis for that. The same
There's-
zoning code that you're referring to has to stipulate that if you have to build at zero
Okay, well,
property line, then that wall must be at
And you can't-
minimum
that
10 feet
eliminates
tall.
step backs?
Or 20 feet tall,
It's-
or 100 feet tall.
Which we see all the time.
Yeah.
but, well, okay, along those lines, if, we know that the southern property could build, they could build a party wall, basically. They could build zero for 3 stories if they chose to. So if this property decided to build a wall and then just set back 1 foot, then you would, think about it, it would create windows that look out 1 foot to the other building. And I think what the zoning
we don't have
attempts
that.
to do is that when you put them together, there's no windows, there's nothing to worry about, or it's 6 feet. Even if that other building is
That's where the
constructed,
fire
which is right at the
separations
property
come
line.
in that I spoke about earlier, where the setback allows us to step the building back 3 or 5 feet and place windows or openings into the wall.
Mhm.
So that's already defined by building code, so we can actually do that. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand, if that didn't exist,
I
like you said,
understand,
yeah.
but I'm just trying to interpret the zoning code, which is 0 or 6. The zoning code doesn't give any allowances if you do this fireproofing or not.
Agreed.
I read it as 0 or 6. If you don't have 0 or 6, you need a variance.
So would you be satisfied if we built a 12-inch wall from the front all the way down to the back of the yard, aligning the property? Mhm.
That would form the building line, right? That wall is attached to the building.
It's structure, it's building.
It's part of the structure.
But
That
you're
creates
not,
the building line.
you're not saying that's what you're going to do, are you?
No, I'm just saying that, I'm trying to let him understand that I need a very clear meeting of the minds on what that is, because what he's saying is, and I understand what he's saying, and I appreciate everything that he said, it's all very meaningful in this conversation, and it also suggests that there are other things that we need to be looking at in defining the local municipal code and dealing with some of these things. But it's clear zoning has, in my view, certain definitions that obviously we all have different interpretations of what that may be. First being side yard. Side yard is continuity from front yard to backyard. If I were to build a shed in my side yard on at my house, you would send and say that that would be a zoning code violation, and therefore you can't do that. With this building, I'm telling you that it's going the zero lot line, once we remove the corbelling, and push that thing all the way to zero. We come back 29 feet, the definition of a side yard disappears, because it's not the continuity of connecting the front through the side of the property and all the way to the back. So the side yard just totally goes out. Then we have structure that's interrupting that space, that 4-foot space that we have, or 3-foot 10-inch space that we have, that's separating our building from the building next door. So if we are to comply and place a continuous structure along that property line, and we were to build a 4-foot, 5-foot, 2-foot high wall, theoretically, we're complying with the very same argument that he's presenting, and that's
Yeah, but
all I'm
a
saying.
wall is not the building. The code talks about buildings.
Because we've met the fire code.
The side, we'll go back to the definition of side yard. It extends from the front yard to the rear yard. It doesn't say it extends 29 feet. So your zero.
We don't have a side yard there because of that.
Well, we're.
It's not-
we're
it's not
driving-
technically a side
We're kind
yard.
of driving in.
I was like, I see what you're saying, but that's not what you're representing you're planning on doing. Right?
No,
I
I'm
guess
saying
this
our
is more of
building
a
is
thought
already-
experiment, kind of, looking at.
No, I just wanted to illustrate another interpretation
I understand.
of what.
And I'm trying to pull
it's
us back
valid.
into
Yes.
what are you proposing? And
I would propose that we, first of all, define or state that the building does not have a side yard at the southern exposure, because it doesn't. He just also read that it needs to extend from the front to the rear. This building doesn't have that. So theoretically, it's already at that zero line. Now, if you want, and we have structure that's interrupting that whole southern portion, that's just about a foot away from that wall, we can certainly build a wall there to meet that definition, but I don't think it's necessary. I think that the building is designed to meet the local fire code. It is designed to meet the local building code. And referring to the document that the fire department gave, he also stated and read it that the fire department even acknowledged the fact that it's designed to code. However, if you would like us to increase the fire resistance rating along that wall that separates the southern portion of our property to the adjacent property, that's something that we can easily do. And then hopefully that would mitigate the fire department's concern about the exposure to heat from a potential fire from the adjacent property. So, I mean, there are ways that we can work around this collectively. I'm just trying to understand exactly which direction you'd like us to go with this, because it's difficult. It's a difficult, and I totally respect this point, because when he first mentioned it, the last meeting, I was like, holy crap, wasn't expecting that. And, it forced us all to think about this issue a little bit deeper. And I think that we've done that. And it's, we have to somehow, you all, make the determination of whether or not, if you believe a variance is required, whether or not, if anything that I've said is valid, and perhaps you may want to reconsider the need for that. But I believe that we're in compliance with everything that has been statutorily outlined for us in zoning and building code and everything else. But this is your house, sir. Let us know. Let us know what you'd like us to do.
Gotcha. And Mr. Turnbull, you don't have any more for Mr. Switzer, right? No. Does the board have any additional questions for Mr. Switzer?
No.
Anybody, oh yeah, people have their hands raised already. So questions for Mr. Switzer about his testimony?
I'm thoroughly confused at this point.
Hi, Mr. Switzer.
Hi, how are you?
Good. A couple of
And
questions.
just for the record, can you state your name one more time?
Absolutely. Jay Turner, 274 Park Street.
Thank you.
One thing that occurred to me when listening to all the testimony, did you ever give any consideration to flipping it so that the driveway was on the northern end and the pizzeria, bagel shop, whatever it's going to be, is on the southern end where the commercial district actually is?
That is an excellent question, and to the benefit of the neighbor with the adjacent property that was here earlier this evening, I also think that he would understand our thinking. If we were to build a wall or a structure at 0-degree property line to the adjacent residential neighborhood, which starts right at that point, his property would be facing a brick wall. And we didn't think that that was being neighborly in our design process. We were really considering the community with the way that it was laid out. So right now, there's a green space, a buffer, a walkway that's separating his property from ours, as opposed to a brick wall that separates it based on the zero.
So were you aware when you did that design that we have a major problem in our neighborhood with Uber, DoorDash people blocking our driveways all day long?
I have heard that from testimony this evening, and I regret that you're dealing with that. We have a expert that's going to be testifying right after me that's going to deal with the traffic issues.
You're looking at the expert. I live right there.
Yes.
So would you not think that it would pose a constant problem for the Elchie and Janet with people, Uber drivers, DoorDash drivers parking in their driveway to go into the pizzeria, bagel shop, whatever it's going to be?
Yeah, that's horrible. I agree. And my suggestion to you would be to call enforcement and make sure that that is managed.
I thought you were going to tell me to sell my house.
No. It sounds to me that it's an enforcement issue and not a design issue. As an architect, I'm designing a structure to hopefully rest on this property that would house people that would be integrated into the community and, be, contributing citizens to the Montclair fiber. So I really hope that that's the case. With respect to the Uber drivers and the food delivery people, unfortunately, I'm not an expert to speak on that.
So when you talk about enforcement, are you aware that directly across the street from the proposed project, there's a sign right now between two driveways that's probably a 6 feet gap. My neighbors are both here. There's a sign that says, "Don't park here," and they put an orange cone in the street every day. And every single day, Uber drivers, DoorDash drivers come and run right over that cone and park right there. And they spend all day calling enforcement. So did you see that sign when you were over
I
at the
saw
property?
several obstructions that were not what I consider approved Department of Transportation barriers to restrict cars from parking in those areas, yes.
So when I think it seems like a very long time ago now that I was here the first time. I feel like we've a very long time. But I read the town vision or whatever it is for these areas. And at the time, it talked about areas between commercial and residential were supposed to be soft transitions, I believe is the word they used in the town plan.
Is your question, did he read that same
no,
document?
No, I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm getting there. So would you consider that to be a soft transition, going from somebody's front porch to a pizzeria that's 16 feet away?
I don't really, and I know this sounds as though I'm not being empathetic, but my concern is that that property, or those two properties, border two different zones. And, there's a residential portion that's on one side, and there's a commercial portion on the other side. And somehow, some way, that has to work. And I don't know how to address that boundary between districts and that transitional process of making it softer or anything. I think with the design that we presented, it showed the property being set back 20 feet, so it's not like sticking out, because that would have been really horrible then, right? If it
You're not presenting that like you were doing that for the goodness of the community.
No.
Are you?
No.
Okay.
No, it's it's required. And that requirement came from a body that thought about what those requirements should be. And all we're doing is just trying to conform to those requirements that have been established.
So respectfully, the question was just, did you think that's a soft transition or not? So that sounds like it's a yes or no kind of question.
I think having the front lawn, as I was suggesting, and creating the 8-foot setback on that northern portion of the property is definitely a soft transition compared to building a wall or the back of a building against the adjacent property, yes.
So you would argue that having the commercial building next to the residential property is a softer transition than just having a driveway there?
I think that not just having the driveway there, yes, I think that that would also be a burden, but also the property itself, the building, structure, the wall. It's going to look, it would be awful to have this 2 properties and then a wall that's just right there that separates the residential from the back of what this residential apartment structure is going to be. It's better to create a green space, of which we've done, to soften it. We've placed well over 100 new plantings on the property. On that side of the property, we're placing close to 50 plants to help soften it a little bit more. I think that there's a lot of work that has been done to try and soften it as best as we can with the guidelines that we've had to work within.
So would it be possible to flip the design?
Well, you can
how
say
do you answer it?
it's
It's definitely
but
possible.
It's not something that we're, that we're willing to do.
It doesn't seem like you're willing to do much, but yes.
We're willing to comply
then-
with the zoning requirements for this property.
That's good to hear. So maybe you'll comply with the 6 feet and then my house won't burn down. So as far as the 1 foot or 6 foot setback, what's the problem with just complying with it? I know the property's on an angle, so it's not ideal for a massive structure like you're putting in. But to comply with it would mean what? You just have to build a smaller structure? Is that the
I'm
problem?
sorry, could you just repeat, what is it that you're
Yes,
looking
I
for
don't
us to
understand what the
comply?
argument is with just complying with what Mr. Ali keeps saying. Why can't you just comply and make the structure either run along the property line at 0 or 6? What makes that so difficult to do?
I think
Is it a size issue that you want to make it bigger?
No,
And to
it's not.
comply would make it smaller?
No, it's not.
Then what's the issue?
There really isn't an issue. If
Then why are you contesting it? Why don't you just do it?
Let him answer your question.
we are prepared to do whatever we need to do, we're trying to determine whether or not if we're building a 12-inch wall or a 20-foot high wall. There's ambiguity here in the language, and I think that it's been acknowledged here, and it's now up to the zoning board to help us understand exactly which direction we're going from this point. It's not in my hands.
All right, well, thank you. I'll go on the record as a property owner that this is a complete loss. I'd like to know they built something that if it catches on fire, my house won't burn down.
This is so when you have time for comment, that's exactly the thing you should come up again and say.
Donna Pickett, 255 Park Street. So I have a question for the architect here. You mentioned your design was based on the community, and you took that into consideration. I know at the last meeting, when I spoke about your building, we have artistic differences. I don't know if you, once again, I'm referring to our master plan here on page 2. Did you even read the Montclair master plan when you took your design into consideration?
My team and I are very aware of that master plan.
So you know on number 2, it says, on page 2, I mean not number 2, it talks about the development, making sure that page 2 and page 10 talks about preserve the rich architectural heritage of the township. I think we're at fault here at not, adhering to our master plan in any of our decisions.
You're going to ask him a question about that, right?
Yes, and that's the question.
I would gladly answer that question. Everything that we do in this town We considered a rich architectural history of the structures that we build. You asked me to, if I
But
considered
if
it,
we
and
look
I'm
at
just
the
letting you
history-
know.
How old is Montclair? Like over 100 years old? And we look at our Tudors, we look at the Coltswolds, we look at Dutch Colonials. This looks like a building in Brooklyn. This is not Brooklyn. This is Watchung Plaza, and I think he needs to redesign it.
Well, that's
And it's
that's
like
for
we're
the
putting
when you get to the comment portion.
We're putting a Titanic
I
in the
understand
middle
what you're
of a
saying,
residential
but
area.
this is not the time for that
So,
statement.
okay, so then, tell me again how you took, in totality, the community of Montclair and the rich history in building this god-ugly building. And I'm sorry to
Object
insult
to
you,
the
but
question.
it's
You know, come
ugly.
on.
So tell me how you took the rich history and the totality of Montclair architecture into designing this box. Tell me how what was your thought process?
I'm not sure how I can answer
You're
that
the
question.
architect, you designed it, what's your thought process? What did you use? What was your basis? If you use this plan, it doesn't appear your design followed this plan.
Well, let him answer if he can answer.
Quite honestly, I can't answer the question.
Because
It's
it's
directed
wrong,
at me
because it's
in
wrong.
anger and everything else, and I don't know
Yeah.
how to respond to emotion
Well,
in that.
I don't
Some
mean
of
to
the residents
insult
are-
you,
I mean,
but.
Mr. Switzer, I understand, but some of the residents are frustrated, as you can tell.
I
right?
understand
So
that. Yeah.
I would imagine she's not necessarily angry with
I
you,
think-
but angry with the project
Yeah,
perhaps. But
yeah.
we'll find out during comment, some more
Yeah.
details. But if
Yeah.
you can answer that question,
I'll
please do. And if you
I'll
can't,
attempt
you
to
can't.
answer as best as I can. Again, I think I mentioned it in my first testimony, particularly about the way that the building was laid out and the porches along the front and the use of material with brick, keeping it natural. I objected to looking at something that was Tudoresque and placing it on that site. We felt as though the materiality is warm. We've kept the busyness off the front of the building. We tried to integrate some decorative brickwork, corbelling, other materials to make the building stand out a little bit more, to make it a little bit more warm and approachable. We've gone through a process of designing landscaping around it to help blend it in as well. There's just been a whole myriad of things that I think I've testified previously about, and I hope that that was helpful in answering the question. If you're suggesting that I read a book and understand what's built across the street and how my project relates to that specifically, yes, there is a time and place for that, but this particular project, I think, is very appropriate for this day and age.
You think
And
it's appropriate?
with the-
A house next door to me,
Let
Herman
let
Hupfeld.
him-
Everyone knows Herman Hupfeld, who wrote As Time Goes By? That's my neighbor's house. I
So-
mean, there's rich history here.
I agree.
Right.
I live
but
in town.
So what you just testified,
Well, hang
does
on,
not follow.
you can ask him questions. You
I know, I'm
have
done.
plenty.
I'm done. I think it's all clear that this building does not belong.
Well, I
and
understand
it's
what you're
just-
saying, but
and-
now's not the
and we're
time
not-
for-
We're not
now's not
making
the time for the
decisions on our
comments.
plan, okay?
You've heard me say this many times
I know.
before. There's a comment period at the end.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask him what his thought process
Yes,
was,
and-
and that was clear, his answer, that it was not
But
the right thought process.
That's your opinion. He answered the question. This is questions about his testimony.
El Chinoverci, 262 Park Street. Again, thank you. Mr. Switzer, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your efforts with regard to our property. Some questions. Will the plantings along the border between 260 and 262 be the entire length of the property?
Pretty much, yes. Have you seen the actual landscape plan?
I have not. I've seen older pictures.
If you wouldn't mind, and this is part of the plan that was distributed to the commissioners. It is sheet L101 that I'm showing him, and it's pretty much a site plan, and it shows plantings going along the entire property line here.
You can have my
You're
copy.
welcome.
Thank you. And what will the height of those plantings be?
Well, they all vary. For example, if you, just so you can follow this and look at this again later too, so I think it'll be helpful if you open this up and then I can show you how to decode some of this information. No problem. So these trees here, okay, so here we are looking at the Taylor junipers, okay? So here, once you identified the plants, and they're all coded by double letters, and once you've identified what they are here, it tells you their Latin name and then their common American English name, tells you whether or not if it's a shrub or a tree. It tells you the size of the root balls. It tells you calipers, it tells you spread, but most importantly, it tells you heights here. So the junipers that you see here, these are 15 to 25 feet tall.
And show me the juniper.
Okay, so the symbol for the juniper is the JV.
Where's that?
JV, JVs, 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 and that area is bubbled there.
I see. Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. My second question.
Sure.
My second question relates to the balcony.
Yes.
And you'll detect a theme in my questions. I'm really concerned about privacy between the two properties.
Understood.
So the trees are helpful. The balcony on the second floor, where along the line would the balcony be? So is it parallel to my house so that someone is looking directly into my second floor?
Okay. So if you look at sheet A101, and I'm saying this for the benefit of the commissioners, A102, the central elevation is the north elevation. That's the elevation that's facing your home. Right. These are all of the windows on that side of the building. And then these are the two balconies here. This is the balcony that we removed from the opposite side and put it there. These three balconies were always previously there.
Okay, and is this my house here?
No, your house is not shown in these drawings. These are two-dimensional elevations showing the sides of the building as designed.
Do you have a plan that shows the lineup where I could see the balconies relative to my house?
On this plan, this is your house here.
Correct.
Okay. All of this area here is the landscaped area. Now, just so you can understand, and the best way to look at this is that's the north elevation, right? This is just a little trick that I do just to help people understand as I fold the drawing just so that elevation is shown. And then I place it against the plan over here.
That's right.
And then this will show you that those balconies are back here, and your house is literally here. So this is what...
So this block here is equivalent to this?
That is correct.
So this is parallel to my house ends here.
Yes, and the
then
balconies are in your,
in
deep into your rear yard.
And they'll be, and are there, and so presumably I could ask the trees be
Of
higher,
course.
closer to the balcony?
That is correct. And what you have now is a 6-foot fence that's there, and then we're placing these plants that are going to grow
Okay. So on my
substantially
side,
more.
I've got the 6-foot fence.
Yes.
And then on your side,
We
right
have
up
the
against
greenery.
the fence will be the greenery.
That is correct.
So the greenery will go to the fence.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next question, and I discussed this briefly with
Yes.
with Gino.
Could I ask you, how many more questions do you have?
I have actually three more questions.
All right, let's take a 10-minute break if you can stick around, because
Sure.
I think several folks need to use the restroom.
Sure, no
So
problem.
let's take a 10-minute break, then we'll come back with the rest of your questions
No
and
problem.
continue on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Talley, are we back on your record?
Yes, we are.
Okay. We got the mayor, we got Mr. Orbea. Okay, we are back. We need Mr. Trembulac.
And you're gonna make a meal out of it.
There's Mr. Trembulac. Okay. So we are back. Sir, you had some more questions for Mr. Switzer.
I did.
Thanks for your indulgence in letting us take a break.
Thank you. No, thanks very much. And Mr. Switzer, thanks very much. So just to close out the issue around the plantings that go the length of the driveway, just to confirm that they will then come past the entrance to the proposed restaurant right up to the sidewalk to avoid individuals and traffic coming onto our driveway.
What we have shown now does not show that, but I believe that you've had a subsequent conversation with the property owner, and he's acknowledged that he would be willing to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. And then related to the bagel shop restaurant area, one of the concerns we had was pickup from DoorDash, Grubhub, et cetera, and the traffic that would generate. Again, pursuant to a subsequent conversation with the developer owner, I understand that there will be a designated pickup spot on the south side of the property along the driveway for the purposes of people picking up food from the restaurant. Is that your understanding as well?
I believe that that's a conversation that you had with the property owner. I believe that that's... Okay, so could you repeat that, please? Okay, yes. The design itself has a loading zone designated in the parking area for short-term parking.
Okay. And the intention is that that would be the pickup spot for the
That
restaurant?
that is correct.
Okay.
Is that a loading zone, or is that the accessible portion of the handicap parking?
It is the accessible, yes.
Is that allowed to be used as a loading zone? Does that not
Well,
have to?
again-
And maybe this is a question for Mr. Anderson, who does the parking.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is that the driveway is wide enough, it's 24 feet, it allows direction in both directions, and if a person is parking on the property, just in the driveway there for a couple moments, run in and grab, then that should be adequate, but...
But parking's not your area of expertise, right?
It is not.
Okay.
It is
So-
not, and that conversation
So that
is
might be
between...
So that might be a conversation to just verify with the owner and the engineer, and then, frankly, I think they're coming back for another night of testimony, because we're not going to get through their planner. I'll spill the beans at this point. We're not going to get through it all tonight, because we've got planner testimony and we've got public comment. There's a lot more that has to go into this application, so they're going to come back. We'll figure out a date soon enough. But maybe in the interim, you can work that out with them, and then they can come back and present that to us if that is so what they want to do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just...
Yes, Mr. Hernandez.
Yes, if I could just clarify for the record, vehicles cannot park within the accessible aisle for the ADA space, just for the record, for loading or...
Thank you.
any
That's
other
what I
reason.
thought.
Yeah.
But maybe they can create a other solution
Yeah.
to that issue.
Yeah, so maybe that's something we can talk about and we can raise with Mr. Anderson as well.
Your microphone's not on, Ms. Talley.
Just take one of the parking spaces and label it for the commercial use and say short-term parking, so that gets the turnover. But it happens inside your property, in your parking lot. And I think that would work.
That's an interesting idea.
I think it would be.
May I ask if Mr. Hernandez agrees that would be possible? A
And
designated parking spot for pickup?
A parking space that is not an accessible space can be designated as, pickup, short-term, delivery, whatever you want to call it, but it cannot be within the ADA accessible
right.
area. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So maybe that's a solution. And then, Mr. Switzer, another question for you. The door of the restaurant space opens on the, as you're facing the building from the front, the right side. Is it possible to move that door to the left side so that the door is not, because right now what it does is if you're on the sidewalk, you're invited to essentially walk across my driveway to reach the door. Whereas if you move that door to the left side of the restaurant, I think it'll force people to go down the central walkway that is away from my driveway, and so it would reduce traffic crossing my driveway and trespassing. Is that possible?
I think that that's feasible with the permission of the property owner, which he seems to agree, so,
Thank you.
yes. Mhm.
Thank you. And then just a clarification question, Mr. Switzer, if you could, the door on the right side of the building directly opposite my house, that is a passageway egress for residents of the building?
Only.
Only?
Yes.
Right. And that door will be shielded again by the plantings, so there'll be plantings between that door and my property. So again, people aren't invited to sort of walk down my driveway.
Agreed, that is what's designed.
Great, thank you. Okay, I think that's my questions, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Other,
Can I just add one thing to that?
if you have questions for Mr. Switzer about his
Yes.
testimony, yes, this is that time.
Yes, just a quick.
And if you can just
Janet,
identify yourself?
I live at 262 Park Street, like he does. I'm the co-owner of that house. I'm Janet Immerman. And my question would just be, is the flip around of the plan where you would put the driveway on the other side, is that Jay had talked about before, so that the whole thing would sort of switch? And the entrance for people to the building would be on the other side. The business would be on the other side. Is that viable? Is that very different, very difficult?
Well, it certainly,
And would that, in fact, it seems like that might be a way to, I know you said like you were worried about having to put a big.
not only that, you'll, the constant in and out of cars as opposed to pedestrians walking through, headlights and all of that coming in and out. Those are also things that you'd have to consider.
Yeah, I feel like that might be less of an issue. So I'm wondering, I mean, is it, if that were better, is it an option?
I can certainly chat with our customer and see what he thinks about that. Honestly, it looks like it could be feasible to do. It's just now redesigning the entire building to do that. No, I'm just being transparent. It is what it is.
It's a whole new plan. I think he's probably not wrong.
Well, again, questions for Mr. Switzer.
Right, okay. That was my question.
And you'll have time, again, just to make it clear, you will have time after all the witnesses to say whatever you want to us, them.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
Well, yeah, okay, not anything, but, relevant to the hearing. Thank you, Mr. Neese.
One more question, Claire Ciliata, regarding DoorDash and Uber. Will it be the owner's responsibility to hold them accountable, to go under the building, to drop off or pick up stuff? Because if no one is going to hold them accountable, there is no way on God's earth that they are going to pull in, park their car, walk back out, then have to negotiate getting out of that parking lot and leave. They make their money by time.
So is that the question to Mr. Switzer?
So I'm asking who's responsible for making Uber come into your driveway to pick up stuff? And if it's not you, They're not gonna do it. So the notion that the
Well,
answer
let,
to
let,
the
let,
problem
let
is
him
that they-
answer. Let him answer the question.
Can I answer that? Because
Yeah,
it's
sure.
more, you know, I don't know how we could possibly enforce that.
I agree.
You know, just, it's reality. I mean, you know, people park, you know, wherever they think, and,
Mr. Chairman, we finally agree on something, yes.
well, I mean,
agree
it's,
too.
you know, I mean, look,
No
it's a
way.
good solution, but how do we enforce it?
So when you
Yeah.
talk about it as a viable solution, I have to say it's not. DoorDash and Uber Eats, they park wherever, whenever, and they've got 5 minutes because that's how they make their money. So please
Okay.
take that into account because we are all suffering from that right now at Watchung Plaza. The, whatchamacallit, the deli gets 165
Now,
days.
now we're starting to get a little too far into comments.
Okay, but I'm just saying to you,
We heard.
don't go there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Switzer? Yes, sir.
Reality, how can we? Am I wrong? I'm telling you first.
Jay Turner, Jay.
Oh, maybe hit the button, see if the light comes on?
The light's on. Oh, yeah,
Perfect.
that's how it works. Jay Turner, 274 Park Street. Mr. Switzer, I think I just heard you say something. I just wanted a clarification. There's an egress door for the residents on the northern side of the building?
Ingress and egress, yes.
Why is that? Is that required by law?
It's the only way they can get in.
I'm trying to understand how else are they supposed to get into the
So
building?
I'm visualizing it, if I'm standing at the street, this is a north, this is a south, you have a driveway going in on the south side, and then they're underneath the building. Why would they need to access it from the north side? Am I visualizing it wrong? Or do you have a picture of it so I can see it?
Here's the door.
Okay, so that's the front
This
of
is
the
the
building?
front. This is the door. This is the north side.
So they're parking under here.
And then they walk out, come in.
Why would they walk out on this side if the driveway's on the south side? They would literally be walking down my neighbor's driveway to get into the building.
No.
Yeah, his driveway's right there, is it not?
It is, however, we have an 8-foot side yard there that's all constructed onto. So they're actually walking on this property, not the adjacent neighbor's property.
Theoretically.
No.
You're
No.
stating that theoretically, correct?
Actually.
If they're coming out of a door, they're walking down the northern property
Mr. Turner,
line
bear
of
with
the
me
property.
1 second.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I'd like you to show you the drawing, and then perhaps it would provide you some clarity.
Sure.
Okay, so the building steps back at this point. There's an 8-foot yard, side yard, on this side of the building. The neighbor's property and driveway is here, not down here. So when people walk in and out of the building, they walk down a sidewalk that is close to the building, that is separating their property from this property with this tree plant line here. And then they enter the building here into an elevator lobby where there's an elevator, and then stairs that take them to the upper floor. So there's never any interaction whatsoever with the adjacent property. That would be unlawful for us to place an entrance into a side of a building to where one has to traverse another person's property to enter the building.
So I'm still struggling here. I understand what you're saying. You're saying the building is set back 8 feet.
It is.
And you have some plantings there. But nonetheless, the residents are going to be walking parallel to a man's driveway and Janet's driveway all the way down to literally the back of their house to enter the building. I'm visualizing the westerly next door, and the residents just walk down the driveway, and then that's how they access the building. I'm not understanding why that has to be such a, it seems like violation of privacy for people to enter the building. Why did you choose to do it like that?
We thought that that was the best solution in creating a transition between the residential and the commercial area. I understand that you've spoken with these folks, and there's an understanding that perhaps the building would be better situated if it were mirrored. But there are a lot of other potential issues. For example, traffic coming in and out of the driveway adjacent to their driveway, constant headlights going in and out. It's going to be a lot busier than several people walking from the sidewalk, along this sidewalk that's on this property and to this door. You're going to have a lot more vehicular traffic. That's going to be.
Have you ever looked at the vehicular traffic coming in and out of the westerly every day?
I am more concerned about this particular property.
Well, it's
which I'm
the
trying
property next door, so wouldn't you think that that would be a good indication of the traffic that would be coming out of your property?
Not necessarily so, but I understand what you're trying to say.
So even though they're almost identical properties next door to each other, you don't think the traffic coming out of one would be an indication of the traffic coming out of the other?
I believe the Westerly is a bigger building than this building.
So then you would suggest that it would have more traffic coming in and out?
At the Westerly, yes.
Okay. All right. So there's very little traffic that comes in and out of that building, but I'll save that for later. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. I really don't understand why you have the entrance literally coming off of somebody's driveway. That doesn't feel soft, but I'll leave it at that.
Any other questions for Mr. Switzer?
Parking here, majority of people are going to be coming in.
Okay, well,
Going in this way.
Residents are going to be coming in.
Yeah.
given the hour, we're past our usual 10
Yes.
o'clock cutoff for new testimony, and given how.
I'm aware of that, and, I think, we'd like the opportunity to consider some additional plan revisions in light of the testimony tonight. I don't know whether we will propose any, but I think it would make sense for us to break at this time and continue
I would agree with that.
another day, because we never get finished with
Right, because that'd be, we would.
public comment.
I mean, we'd probably go to 1:30 if we move forward with Mr. Stimmel, that'd be my guess.
Only the zoning board goes to 1:30 in this town. So.
No, we've gone to one, yeah. I was like.
Well, and the council.
Council
Excuse me.
definitely, this body's going to, that's the record for.
The only land use board that goes to
No,
1:30.
1:30 is the record for this board, at least since I've been on this. Ms. Talley, what's a good date that these folks could possibly come back? And I guess, Mr. Tremblay, think about if you are going to revise the building, if you have time to submit new site plans, all of that.
I think the safe thing would be to come back at the February 9th meeting, Janice.
Okay, I'll put you to February 9th.
So this will,
Let me just make sure that that's the date.
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, it is.
It's on your,
Yes, February 9th.
Stay till whatever time you run to. And we never get to do the public comment. All through the meeting, you tell us you have to wait.
Yes.
Time for public comment.
Yes.
You're closing this meeting right now.
Correct. They have more witnesses that need to testify. And if we have, it's their case. They decide how many witnesses show up and how many they put on. They have another witness. If we take that witness's testimony, we have to hear his testimony. The board will question him. The public will have a right to question him. And at that point, we would then have public comment. But once we finish with their case and move into public comment, we essentially have to then make a decision. It's the best practice in land use, right? So that would mean that you've heard us talk for probably an hour on whether this needs a side yard setback variance. We would have to come to a decision on that in and amongst all of the other questions about this application. So that's why when I say, if we move forward with Mr. Stimmel, who's their next expert, we're probably here until 1:30 because we'd have to go through all the public comments. So I can appreciate showing up repeatedly.
Because there's no way that I've heard that before, so I really appreciate it, because at the age of 80, staying up this late is bad for my health.
I understand, and that's part of the reason why.
Things I want to say.
And that's part of the reason why I want to, not move forward with the application further tonight, is because I want people to have the time and the opportunity to provide meaningful public comment and not feel rushed because it's 11:30, 12 o'clock at night and people are dozing off, right? I want that as for this board and for this township, right? So that is the reason. So I understand your frustration. Yes, sometimes these go on, and we have many nights of testimony and hearings, but it really is so that you all as the public and we as the board can get all the information that we need. And so the applicant can present their case as well, however they determine is best for them.
I appreciate it, I just had no idea, I thought they were always open to public comment, but I understand it, I got it, and I'll bring more words.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz.
So-
I just want to, Mr. Tremblak, you have no issue extending the board's time?
Oh, of course not. We consent.
And so we'll continue to February 9th with no further notice required. We will see you then.
Thank you. We look forward to it.
And then similarly, we have application 2950-516 Bloomfield Avenue, Night Owl LLC, which I believe is yours, Mr. Tremblak?
That's my client as well, and I already spoke to them. They were here. They've already gone home.
Okay.
Recognizing that not going to be heard tonight. We hope that could be put on for the January 26th meeting, Janice?
That'll work. We will continue that to, or start that at January 26th.
Okay.
Great.
That'll be
Thank
on
you.
January 26th. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we still have a couple more things for the board to get through. Next up, we have the fourth round housing element and fair share plan status update.
Yes, so I wanted to let the board know where we are with our fourth round plan. It was, as you know, submitted to what's called the Housing Dispute Resolution Court, which is a new creature created for this fourth round housing plan. And the process is you submit it to the court. They bring in the Fair Share Housing Center to assist them with compliance review. The Fair Share Housing Center submitted a letter asking for a lot of additional documentation. Quite frankly, that's because we have not been involved in a dispute. We've had no lawsuits. So we did not have
And
to.
if members of the public could take the conversation outside, just because it's a little hard to hear, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
So we have not been involved in ongoing discussions with the Fair Share Housing Center with our third round housing plan. So this was, while they saw some of our documentation in 2018 when we got our spending plan approved, we had to bring them up to speed. So we submitted all the documentation that was requested by the Fair Share Housing Center. We had a series of mediation meetings. The Fair Share Housing Center is satisfied with what we produced. They've asked for additional time to review everything. I mean, there may be some minor modifications on the classifications of units, but we came to an agreement. So there was a settlement agreement on the mediation signed between the township by the council and the Fair Share Housing Center, and the judge approved that. And that's what I gave you a copy of. I really wanted the board to be cognizant of the timeframes that are in that settlement, that mediation settlement. Number one is we have to have our ordinances in place by March 15th. Now, the newest iteration of the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls, which dictate how units are created and managed, affordable units, they were adopted in December 15th. So we've seen versions over the years, and I started going through them, but there was even some significant changes in the version that was actually adopted in December. So working with our affordable housing attorney, we will be working over the next 6 weeks to come up with amendments to our affordable housing ordinance. It really doesn't affect our inclusionary zoning ordinance. It really affects our affordable housing ordinance and how we manage our affordable units. So I wanted to keep you apprised of that. One of the key issues is it eliminates the local preference that we currently have on our waiting list. The new regulations absolutely eliminate the ability of municipalities to have a local preference. In previous iterations, in previous rounds of affordable housing, municipalities can make a case that having a local preference would help create non-discriminatory housing for their residents based on the composition of their residents. That's no longer even an option. So that's one of the biggest changes. We're going to have to get rid of that in how we manage our affordable housing units. And there's a lot of other things. So just want to let you know that our intent is to have the draft ordinances prepared by mid-February, because they have to be adopted by March. We're working with our affordable housing attorneys on that. So,
Can I have a question?
yeah.
So, we did want to mention, I'm glad that you brought up the issue of the local preference. So that came to light during our conversations with the attorney, with our affordable housing attorney. And it's a bitter pill to swallow. And the mayor and I personally have been pushing back hard to try to think of, ways that we can make that transition while keeping some of the good parts. But will we be removing the preference from our ordinance as a part of that, or will it just be dead letter law?
I'm pretty sure we have to remove it from our ordinance.
And so when do we have an opportunity to legally challenge that?
You can do that anytime you want. Yeah, I think you have to go to the state, because it's state law. We can have a conversation. I mean, I pushed and pushed to keep the local preference.
We all
I
did.
spoke to the special master who was involved in our third round,
Mhm.
and she was the one that said, Janice, as long as you fully met your obligation, you can keep your local preference. And that's why we crafted the housing plan, to fully meet our
I know.
affordable
I was
housing
right there with
obligation.
you. Yep.
So,
That's what I'm saying. So I don't know, unless, I mean, this is not the time, but I don't know, then it behooves us to take it out of there. I think we should leave it in and fight.
okay. We may be subject to challenge, like Hoboken was.
We've been there
but-
before, haven't we?
But,
I agree with the mayor.
hey,
I
we've-
support you on that. I support you 100%.
Yes.
If we're over our minimum obligation, it seems as though, and that we can do it, then we should do it.
Well, that was.
Our attorney, I pushed him very hard in person and by email, and he was very good humored about it, but he said it is,
You leave yourself open to challenge, I think you
he
probably
said
said.
it's done.
But I don't think the Fair Share Housing Center has a problem with it.
No.
Right.
It's not coming from them.
Mm-mm.
I think he's probably our attorney is doing his due diligence, said, you're open to challenge. You can do it.
He's trying to keep us out of trouble.
Right, so.
Good trouble.
Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that we'll be working on that,
Do those regulations or ordinances come before the planning board, or is that handled solely by the
They
township
are
council?
not in the zoning ordinance. They're in the we have an affordable housing ordinance.
Doesn't that still have to come before this board? Even though it's not in the zoning.
I don't think we're getting you on the microphone, Mr. Neese.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, why don't we say, let me talk to the
that out.
affordable
Okay.
housing attorney. I would like to bring it to you,
Sure.
so I don't know what the time frame. As you can imagine,
That's why I raised the question.
I was going through all the regulations today, tearing my hair out, trying to, do the cert, whatever. So, yes, so that's going to be, if I'm not responding to things quickly, that's because our focus right now is to meet all of these very tight deadlines, which we've had from day one when it comes to affordable housing, with preparing the plan, adopting the plan, and now putting the ordinances in place. So we will be working on that. I will share it with you. We have, maybe the meetings in February, I'll be able to get a draft ordinance to you, but also with the council, so.
Well, thank you so much. I know it was a ton of work, the whole process. The fourth round process was just a lot of work. Thank you.
Well,
Were you part of the December 31st conference with the judge?
I was, yes.
What, maybe the board would like to know, what did the judge determine, if anything, about the Avery challenge?
We listened to, Ms. Avery made her position known. She got to present her argument, and then the judge said, we had an hour. The judge said, okay, thank you. We will take this under advisement. We have the special master will make their, who's a planner, will make their recommendation to the judge, and the judge will make their decision by the end of this month. So it was really essentially a listening session.
Okay.
Okay, so what I have for you, so that you're not surprised, I did bring our attorney's prepared a memo summarizing broadly the changes to the ordinance. So I have to say, they worked really hard. Look at the date of this memo that they prepared.
Thank you.
Ah,
Yeah. I've got it here. Yep.
okay, so this is for us to review.
Just giving you an idea of the scope.
Okay.
Okay. And that's it.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you. Do we have any committee reports?
It occurred to me today that we need to appoint people to the committees. Just so clearly, because Jacob's no longer part of the planning board, I need somebody to volunteer for the Development Review Committee, which meets once a month. It's a great opportunity. Councilor D'Amato is a member of the Development Review Committee. It's basically a technical review of all site plan applications. So anybody who's interested, let me know. And then there's a couple of other committees. The zoning subcommittee will be very busy this year because I think we'll be working on some changes to the zoning subcommittee. So there's an opening there as well. And finally, there's also an opening with the revisions committee. So maybe at the next meeting.
Maybe the next, yeah, if you can circulate the list of
Yeah.
openings and,
Names on it so we can see where the openings,
Yeah.
I might be interested in the zoning subcommittee.
Yeah, okay. I will
Don't put my
circulate
name
that.
down just yet.
okay, great, we can tackle that next time. Do we have bills?
No.
No bills.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you so much.